Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Lost Everything 'Cause of Ishikki and Returns for Revenge Part 3. Before we start, please go support Javier Ramirez 042 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Naruto is a male in this story. Chapter 26, Dealing with the Sound. The Sound crew frowned at Lee and Sakura said, "It's good that they came to support us." "Don't worry, Sakura-chan, we will always show up to support our friends," Lee said with a big smile. Sakura smiled happily to see that Lee was still the same, and Sasuke said, "The best thing would be to finish this once and for all. These idiots shouldn't be a problem for you now, right, Lee?" Lee smiled at him with a radiant smile and said, "Of course not, after all, hard work will always shine in the flames of youth." The one with the bandages laughed mockingly and said to Zaku, "Zaku, you can go get the Uchiha, I'll take care of that green fool." He threw the scroll they were carrying at him and launched himself against Rock Lee to eliminate him. "This brow has very advanced hand-to-hand combat. This can be fun," he thought maliciously. Sakura threw a kunai at him to contribute to the battle, but the one with the bandages only dodged it to head towards Lee. But the Sujoutas only hit the ground with a kick and picked up a huge piece of stone that he kicked to throw it towards his enemy. The one with the bandages saw this with open eyes and put his arm in front of him to use the sound to destroy the stone. When it was destroyed, he looked at Lee, who was smiling hugely. "I know what the trick is in your attacks. You use sound to fight, and when an opponent approaches you, you send an air vibration that affects your target's eardrum and thus loses balance. That way, your opponents remain motionless and ready for your next attack," Lee said with a big smile. "How did he know?" thought the one with the bandages without being able to believe it. Zaku and his partner Kin were also speechless at the fact that a simple brat had discovered their leader's attack system, and Sasuke sighed as he said, "Knowing it is one thing, dealing with it is another. Do you have any idea how to deal with your opponent's sound, Lee?" Sasuke-kun is right. Even if you know how I fight, it won't help you if you don't have a way to deal with it," said the one with the bandages mockingly. "That? I don't listen to you," Lee shouted, looking at him with a complicated face. Everyone looked at him with blank eyes, and Sakura said, "Lee, don't tell me that." "That? I cannot hear you talk louder than the earplugs I asked from Shikamaru-san for this occasion. I see and hear you," Lee shouted, pointing at his ears. Everyone squinted to get a closer look, and could see that there were indeed earplugs in Lee's. Sasuke sighed in frustration and said, "It's amazing how he and Naruto can create such stupid plans." But at that moment, Shikamaru's team appeared next to Niji's group ready to help them, and Ino shouted, "Is everything okay, Front? And what do you think, Pig? We are camping here very calmly, and this sound team came to cut flowers with us," Sakura said with a lot of sarcasm. "What's sarcasm yours? And how is Naruto?" Ino asked seriously. "He is taking care of Akino. You better not bother him for now," Sasuke said seriously. Niji went to Lee and said, "Is everything okay, Lee?" "That? I don't listen to you," Lee shouted in his face. Niji removed the earplugs so he could hear and said, "Although I admit that the idea of using earplugs to fight against sound equipment is a good idea, there is still the complication of being able to hear what others are telling you." Lee looked at him with a nervous smile and laughed a little as he said, You may be right. But it was still a very youthful idea." The sound team looked at everyone present with a drop of sweat, and the one with the bandages took the scroll from his partner, while saying, "We are not idiots enough to fight against all of you. For that reason, take the scroll and let us go." Everyone looked at him with frowns, when a voice behind them said, "Forward. They have acted wisely by not fighting a battle they know they cannot win. I'm done with Akino-chan, and if you do and want to be in range of his fury, I advise you to get out of here." Everyone turned to see Naruto coming out of hiding with a very angry Akino who was looking at the sound system with murderous eyes. This scared the three of them a little, and the one with the bandages said, "Thank you very much for letting us go. Even though we came for the two Uchihas, we are not idiots enough to die at a disadvantage. Let's go." With that said, the sound trio disappeared instantly. When they left, Ino and Tenten went to Akino to see if she was okay. Are you okay, Akino? Ino asked, worried. I'm fine, thanks to Naru, Akino said with a smile. Naruto walked over to the scroll and took it to give it to Shikamaru's team. Here. I guess they haven't gotten one yet. We already have what we need and we are going straight to the tower, the blonde said with a smile. Not yet, Sasuke said seriously. What do you mean? Akino asked angrily. Sasuke looked at the forest with a serious look and said, There is a very special person that I must find. Ah, you mean Karen, right? I think you better save her from her and bring her back from now on. She could be protected by the Uchiha clan and the Uzumaki clan as she is Naruto's relative, Sakura said, understanding. Sasuke nodded and Naruto sighed as he said, Go get her, Sasuke. We will go to the tower and wait for you there. Sasuke looked at him with a grateful look and began jumping through the trees towards where he could feel Karen's chakra. Naruto looked at Niji's team and said, Thanks for your help. See you at the tower. I say the same, Naruto-san. I'm sure Hinata-sama must be on her way too, Niji said with a smile. Yash, let's run to the tower. If we don't make it before nightfall, I will walk around Konoha 2,000 times with my fingers, Lee shouted with excitement. Could you stop that creepy way of training that you have? It irritates me, Yujuto shouted, kicking him. See you guys. I hope they can arrive on time, Tenten said, following his team. When they left, Naruto and Sakura looked at Shikamaru's team with a smile. Well, we better get on our way to the tower to rest at least, Shikamaru said with a yawn. You only think about rest or clouds, Naruto said mockingly. At least I don't think about ramen all the time like you do, the Nara replied with a frown. Did someone say ramen? Choji asked, eating a bag of meat that Naruto gave him. Meanwhile, the girls were talking to each other animatedly. So, Orochimaru put the seal on you and Naruto modified it so that it worked for your benefit? Ino asked curiously. That's how it is. Naru modified the signal that damn snake put on me and now I can use it to gather elemental chakra. I don't know what would happen to me if Naru wasn't with me, Akino said with a smile. We know what you feel. Well, we better get moving and get to the tower to show up for the last test. Rest assured that this time I will beat you, Ino Pig, Sakura said confidently. In your dreams, Friend Ino told him with a challenging smile. Naruto looked at everyone and said, Well, let's go to the tower at once to wait for Sasuke. Everyone and began their way to their destination. Meanwhile, in a remote area of the forest, Sasuke had arrived at his destination and could see a certain redhead being abused by his teammates. Damn whore, if you are not willing to support us the way we want, then die in this forest, one of them shouted with fury. That's how it is. You are just a tool that is used and thrown away when it is no longer useful, the other shouted, kicking her. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the next thing the two unhappy people saw was a red eye and a black one, and then they fell into the most horrendous darkness. The girl heard bodies fall to the ground and opened her eyes in fear to find a handsome young man looking at her with a smile. Are you okay? He asked, extending his hand. She looked at him with wide eyes as his special ability made her see in him such a bright and peaceful chakra that attracted her. I'm fine, she said, stuttering. Sasuke helped her up and looked into her eyes with his Sharingan as he said, It's good to see you again, Karen. Karen could see in her eye all her memories of her past life, and after obtaining them, she looked at Sasuke with tears as she said, Sasuke-kun? Is that really you, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke smiled at her even more and gave her a loving kiss on her lips, to which she closed her eyes to enjoy it, and when they finished the kiss, Sasuke told her, I assure you that it was not a dead person who kissed you, and you are not in a genjutsu either. Karen threw herself to hug him with many tears and shouted with joy, Sasuke-kun, Sasuke-kun, it's alive, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke hugged her back, and after hugging for a while, he took her in his arms like a princess while saying, Well, let's go to the tower to meet with the others, and we will ask the Hokage to admit you into the village as protected from the Uzumaki and Uchiha clans. Wait, Sasuke-kun, What are you saying, Gee? Karen shouted as she was carried by the Uchiha quickly through the forest towards the tower. On the other hand, Hinata was leading her team towards the tower since they had managed to obtain the scroll, when they felt something near them. Stop! The Hyuga shouted seriously. The three stopped at a tree and Hinata looked at Kiba with serious eyes. He understood and began to sniff the area. I smell the aroma of sand and some water, he said. Shino was with his eyes closed and said, There are around 6. They may be Suna and Kiri's team. Hinata looked forward and making a sign said, Tensigen. With his Dujitsu, he managed to observe that they were indeed Gaara's team and a Kiri team, motionless in front of each other. She deactivated her Dujitsu and said, It's Gaara and his team against a team of Kiri. I guess there will be no harm in seeing what happens. Will it be safe? Kiba asked, somewhat nervous. No need to fear. Naruto-kun gave his memories of him to Gaara-san and he is on our side. Come on, Hinata said with a smile. The three went to where Gaara's team was and upon arriving, they found a complicated discussion between both villages. Give us the scroll, idiot, said the leader of Kiri's team. Gaara just remained calm while his companions watched their opponents and after a while, the redhead said, If they really want it, they must obtain it by fighting. That's the way to pass this exam. If they really want to be shinobi, they must obtain information the shinobi way, by fighting. What will they do? The Kiri team leader gritted his teeth and said, You are going to die. Stop talking and act. A shinobi must act according to his situation, Gaara said calmly. Kankuro looked at his brother with a drop of sweat and said, Hey, this time can we find out if they have the scroll we need? It would not be a good idea to act without information again. Gaara looked at him with a frown and sighing, he said, Good. Hey, do you have the scroll of heaven or earth? The rain shinobi smiled arrogantly and, taking out a straw umbrella, shouted, If you want to know, take it away from me, here we go. He threw several straw umbrellas into the sky and, making a hand signal, shouted, Die, rat ninpu, raining needles. From the umbrellas, thousands of needles were shot towards Gaara's team as if they were controlled. There is no escape from this jutsu. It's controlled by my chakra to go straight to my target, the Kiri shinobi shouted with an arrogant smile. The needles fell on top of Suna's team and Kiri's team leader saw this with a big smile as he thought, Hey, too easy. But he was shocked to see that in front of him there was a kind of dome in the shape of a woman, protecting the Suna team with her hands. Gaara looked at the rain shinobi with a neutral expression and said, That's there? No way, not a single scratch? Don't they have any scratches? Impossible, and what is that dome in the shape of a woman? Shouted the rain shinobi with large drops of sweat. He made a hand sign to send more needles towards the redhead, but the dome's hand moved in front of him and shielded him from the needles. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but my mother will not allow your needles to reach us. She is very protective even when she is dead and her protection covers us with this sand. Now, he said simply. He extended his hand to control the sand in the environment, and a hand of sand went towards Kiri's team to quickly grab the scroll and bring it to Gaara. The scroll of heaven. It's the one we need. Good, now you can go and I advise you to get out of here if you want to get out alive. This forest is dangerous even for experienced ninjas like you, said the redhead, keeping the scroll in his pumpkin. Kiri's team looked at them with a drop of sweat and Kankuro told them with a sadistic smile, Unless you want to be locked inside my puppet and be tortured. Hearing this, only dust remained from Kiri's equipment, and Gaara looked at his brother with a drop of sweat. That was a bit excessive, Kankuro, he told him seriously. Look who says it, the antisocial one who killed anyone who looked at him ugly. Do you really have the nerve to tell me such a thing? Kankuro said with a cheeky smile. Gaara smiled amused at his words and then looked at the bushes to say, You can go out now, there is no danger. Hinata's team came out of the bushes and looked at Gaara with a smile and said, It's good to see you're back, Gaara-san. Gaara bowed to her and said, It's good to see you again, Hinata-san. I guess now you are taking advantage of this new opportunity to show why she is Naruto Uzumaki's wife, right? That's how it is. The last team we found was too easy for me. We managed to get the scroll in no time, Hinata said with a smile. Yes, but I feel sorry for the poor. You should have seen how they turned out. They were much worse than those Kiri shinobi in their past life after Gaara took care of them, Kiba said tremblingly. Did you say something, Kiba-kun? Hinata said with a sweet smile as the Shinigami appeared behind her. Nothing, Kiba shouted in panic. Gaara laughed a little at the scene and said, Well, allow me to escort you and your team to the tower. Being my best friend's wife, it's the least I can do for you. Hinata looked at him with a beautiful smile and said, Thank you very much, Gaara-san. Now that we have the scrolls we need, we can return to the tower immediately. Come on, guys. And just like that, both teams moved towards the tower while Hinata and Temari talked about a certain blonde on the way. Chapter 27, Arriving at the Tower. In the Forest Tower of Death. Naruto and his team were at the entrance, waiting for Sasuke and Karen, when the black-haired man arrived with the redhead in his arms. Naruto, Sakura. It's good to see you again, Karen shouted, running to hug them. Karen, what a joy to see you again, Sakura shouted, hugging her. It's good to see you again, cousin, Naruto said, hugging Karen. Karen looked at him with a smile and said, It's true, we are from the same clan, so I could call you Naruto and I. But I want to know how we came back. I remember that this Ishikki guy had arrived at Orochimaru's laboratory and attacked us all. What's going on? We'll tell you inside. Let's better go in, said Sasuke, starting to enter the tower. Thus, the five entered the tower to find a sign with some words written on it. Well, we're here. Now let's open the scrolls, said Naruto, taking out the 2 scrolls. He and Sakura opened the scrolls at the same time and threw them on the ground to be activated. Instantly, smoke came out of the scrolls and Iruka appeared before them with a smile. Iruka-sensei? Akino asked, surprised. The instructor just looked at them with a smile and said, Hi guys, it's good to see that they have managed to get here faster than on the other occasion. Faster? Why do you say that? Akino asked, confused. Team 7 just sighed and Sasuke said, In our past life, we arrived just on the last day and we almost ran out of time because due to Orochimaru and the fact that a certain blonde delayed us, we didn't get any scrolls. Hey, I was totally not to blame. Who was incapacitated when the snake gave him a hickey, leaving him immobile? Naruto shouted angrily. Sasuke only grunted when he knew it was true, and Akino laughed a little at her cousin's misfortune and then asked Iruka. Iruka-sensei, why did it appear from the scroll? Iruka smiled even more at the enthusiasm of his favorite team and said, We Chunin must receive those who passed the second test of the exam. I am here as an emissary of an important communication. Emissary? Akino asked without understanding. Iruka smiled at them and said happily, Congratulations, they have passed the second test with honors. To celebrate, I invite you to a bowl of ramen with tomato salad and some chocolate bars. At that moment, Akino threw herself into his arms while shouting with joy, Live chocolate. Iruka laughed a little, seeing that Akino was very much like Naruto with her playfulness, and coughed a little to get back to seriousness. Well, it's good to see that you are happy, but I'm not done yet. Do you see the poster on the wall? He said, pointing to the poster. Everyone looked at him and Akino asked, What does that incomplete poster mean? I don't understand. These are some guidelines that the Hokages left for you in this exam, Iruka said with a smile. Some guidelines? Akino asked, even more confused. That's it is a metaphor. Heaven refers to the mind, while the earth represents the body. If you lack heaven, acquire the knowledge for opportunity. For example, people like Naruto was in his past life, his weak point would be knowledge. You must always learn new things and prepare to do your duty when your turn comes. I can say from the first test that Akino-chan has knowledge as a weak point as well, Iruka explained, looking at Akino with a smile. What nonsense! Akino said with annoyance. The rest of the team and Karen laughed discreetly at Akino's comment, and then Karen, who had been silent the entire time, asked, Excuse me, Can I know what the second part means? Iruka saw her with wide eyes when he recognized her, but he remained calm when he remembered that she was someone protected by Sasuke and Naruto, so he told her. Good question, Karen-san. If you lack the land, seek the strength to break the fields. The weak point of people like Sakura-san was in her past life when she took this exam, is the lack of physical strength. She means that they must make an effort and not stop training for a single day. She also serves as an example of how to overcome that weakness since she became a kunoichi of great strength in her past life. Sakura proudly stuck out her chest at Iruka's praise and he smiled proudly as he continued. As soon as they have managed to dominate heaven and earth, they will be able to carry out any mission, no matter how dangerous it may be, and most importantly, they will be able to completely achieve their dreams. They will know the best way to fulfill their duty as ninjas. Akino looked at him with serious eyes as she understood what he meant and what that meant for her goal. Then he asked Iruka, "But what about the word that is missing in the text?" Iruka smiled at him and continued with the explanation. It is the word that contains the essence of a chunin. Neither more nor less than human being, just as it was written on the patches. The survival test of these 5 days had no other objective than to check their basic chunin skills, and they passed it brilliantly. The chunin who holds the rank of captain is trained to lead a group. On a mission, you must never forget the importance of knowledge, strength, or the human heart. I want you to continue on your path keeping these 3 points in mind. That's it. This is the message I had to communicate to you. The third and final test awaits them. Be very careful. The 4 of Team 7 looked at him with a smile that showed they were ready, and the sensei felt proud of them. Then, he looked at Karen and said, Karen-san, I would like you to accompany me to see the Hokage. He is aware of your entire story and his wife Kushina Uzumaki-sama wishes to see you. Karen looked at him with wide eyes and asked, Is Kushina-sama alive? That's how it is. She knows everything about you from hearing it from Sasuke, and she wants to see you. She is willing to take you as part of the Uzumaki clan, and since Mito-sama is also alive, she will take care of the paperwork for you to be accepted. Iruka told her kindly. Karen let out tears of joy and said happily, Thank you, I finally have a family. I will accompany him to see the Hokage. Then he looked at Sasuke and gave him a loving kiss and then said, I'll see you later, Sasuke-kun. At least now we can be together without hiding our love, and in the future, our daughter Sarada can finally be with us. Sasuke smiled kindly at him and said, It's what I want the most. Go with Iruka-sensei and wait for me next to Kushina-san until I leave the first part of the tournament. Karen agreed and followed Iruka to see the Hokage. When they left, Naruto looked at Team 7 and said, Well, we better rest to be ready for the tournament, since in this new life it will be even more complicated. Naruto is right. Most of the teams that manage to pass the second test will be the ones remembered that Naruto brought, and they will be at the same level as in our past life or stronger if they have improved. The best thing will be to regain strength and plan how to fight each one of them. Sakura said seriously. I have the same opinion. At least we were able to survive Orochimaru, and now we only have to worry about the invasion. The good thing is that Gaara is on our side and there won't be so much massacre thanks to us and the Hokage. Sasuke said with a smile. Akino yawned a little and said, I think I'll take them at their word. I am very sleepy and I have experienced many things in that forest. I need a bed and some food to feel better. Where is the food? Naruto laughed a little and took Akino by her hands to guide her to the food as he said, Come with me. I'm hungry too, and maybe there's something we like so much. Will there be chocolate? Akino asked with stars in her eyes. Maybe with some ramen for me, Naruto said with a smile. So what are we waiting for? Let's get the food, Akino shouted, moving forward like a bullet and dragging the blonde. Sasuke and Sakura smiled at the scene and followed them to the large dining room where the food was for those who had passed the second test on time. Upon arriving, they were surprised to see certain teams there. Oh, I see they've already arrived, Kiba said while eating a piece of meat. Wow, if we weren't the last in the whole test, if we were among those remembered, Naruto said with a drop of sweat. In the dining room were the following teams: Gaara's team from Suna, Samui's team from Kumo, Kuratsuchi's team from IWA, Hinata's team, Shikamaru's team, and Niji's team. In total, there were 7 teams with them included for a number of 23 people who passed the second test so far. Naruto-kun, Temari, Samui, Yujuto, Kuratsuchi, Hinata and Ino shouted when they saw him. "Hello, girls. It's good to see that they have managed to get here safely," Naruto said with a smile. Naruto's team sat at the large dining room table to begin eating, and Akino looked at Hinata with cold eyes. "How did you get here so fast, Hyuga?" she asked angrily. Hinata smiled slyly at him and said, "That's just proof of how far you are from reaching me, Uchiha. I am far ahead of you, and that is why I was able to get here quickly." Akino looked at her through clenched teeth and grew loudly as she furiously ate a piece of chocolate cake. Naruto looked at Gaara's group and said, "Gaara, how was it in the forest?" Gaara looked at him with serene eyes and said, "It went well for us. We were able to get the scroll easily and managed to reach the tower quickly. By the way, I escorted your wife here so she wouldn't be attacked." "Ha! Thank you very much for that," Naruto said with a smile. Sasuke, on the other hand, was talking to Kiba and Shikamaru while they tied. "How did it go, dog breath?" Sasuke asked mockingly. Kiba looked at him angrily for that nickname and said, "It went well for us, Uchiha. After all, Akamaru and I were responsible for us getting here on time." "I doubt it. Most likely, Hinata was the one who acted, and that's why they were able to arrive on time," Shikamaru said lazily. Kiba glared at him as that was exactly what happened, but he wasn't going to admit it. Sasuke noticed this and chuckled as he said, "Don't try to take credit from your partner. Believe me, it's not a pretty thing. The best thing would be to look for an opportunity to perform an act that makes you shine instead of saying that you did things." Kiba grew lowly at Sasuke's words since he was right and said, "I don't need an Uchiha to tell me that, I know that." Sasuke and Shikamaru rolled their eyes at his words and continued eating calmly. Meanwhile, Sakura was talking to Ino. "I don't know if I should cut my hair again or leave it this long," Sakura said thoughtfully. "Better leave it long, since it is a way of saying that you are taking advantage of your new life. Furthermore, Kushina-sama was a famous kunoichi even though she had long hair, just like Tsunade-sama. I think tying it in a ponytail or in 2 braids like Tsunade-sama would be better for you," Ino told her, analyzing her pink hair. Sakura looked at her hair with a smile and said, "Yes, it's better to leave it like this. I am in a new opportunity, and it would be interesting to take it in a different way. I'll leave it long and see what style I put on it." "That's how you talk, front," Ino told him happily. Thus, the meal continued in a cheerful manner while conversations filled the spirits of the participants. Meanwhile, in a tower room, Minato stood in front of the monitors while watching the participants eat calmly. "This is something I never thought I would see, participants of a Chunin exam from the 5 villages eating and chatting together, as if they were the best friends of a lifetime," he said with a smile. "That's what my Sochi can achieve." "I told you he would achieve great things, Minato," Kushina said happily. Minato smiled even more and then looked at Karen next to him to say, "Your information about Orochimaru's plans will be very useful for us to stop him. I advise you to stay next to my wife Kushina at all times or stay in the Uzumaki complex where you will be safer." "Thank you very much, Hokage-sama. I will be with Kushina-sama at all times to support them in the invasion. I have knowledge of what that snake will do, and it could be of vital importance when he acts," Karen said seriously. Minato nodded and then looked at the monitor to observe the participants' dinner. At least in this new life, he will have to be cautious. Now we are in an alliance of 4 of the 5 great villages, and after the invasion, Suna will most likely join too, thanks to Gaara-san. The leaders of IWA, Kumo and Kiri will come in the finals to watch the tournament and to support the invasion. I'm sure Orochimaru is aware of this and is prepared for anything. I just hope everything turns out well," he said with a sigh. Days after, the last teams managed to reach the tower in time for the last test, Kabuto's team and the Sound team. With them, there were now 9 teams and a number of 29 participants for the final test. Kabuto moved through the hallways until he ran into a person who was waiting for him, smiling. I see that you have been very patient. Well, maybe this will help you, said the gray-haired man, handing him a card. The man took the card and inspected it with a smile. On that card is the information for the second test. I'm sure it will be very useful to you. Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said with a bow. Before him, Orochimaru smiled maliciously and said, Well done, Kabuto-kun. Now we just have to keep an eye on our targets and prepare everything for the fall of this village. As you order, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said before leaving. Orochimaru just looked at the card with sharp eyes and said, Kakuku, it's interesting what you've achieved, Naruto-kun. I am increasingly interested to see what will happen next. I have never had such great interest in something like seeing all your steps. Keep it up and show me what the future holds for you, Naruto-kun. Chapter 28. The preliminaries begin. On the 5th day of the second test. All the teams that managed to pass the second test were already in the combat arena to carry out the third, and before them were Minato with the jounin of each team plus the instructors of each test. First of all, I must congratulate you. Congratulations, they have passed the second test, Anko shouted with a smile. Jujuju, there were at least 100 when they started the second test, and now there are 29 left. I warned them that less than half would come out, although I expected a few less. She thought with a sadistic smile. The teams that had managed to arrive were looking at her with frowns, and Naruto thought, well, with this number of participants there can be some fun. After all, more than 50% of us are remembered and possess the skills of our past life plus what is surely our improvement from this life. So this tournament won't be boring. With the jounin, Guy looked at his team with a radiant smile and said to Kakashi, I see that your boys are as youthful as in our past life, Kakashi. We both have a special 4-member genin team, and they will be fighting each other in this tournament. We will see which team has the most radiant youth for the beautiful future. Kakashi looked at him with a lazy expression and said, Sorry. Did you say something? Guy clenched his fist in fury at his words and said while grinding his teeth, It is obvious that you are my rival, Kakashi. That twisted point of yours drives me crazy. With the equipment, Lee looked at Naruto and said, Naruto-kun, let's show how burning our flames of youth are. Let's fight together like a beautiful sunrise and show how strong we are. Naruto looked at him with a frown and said, Sorry, did you say something? Lee clenched his fist in fury and said with fire in his eyes, I knew it, Naruto-kun is my eternal rival. That twisted attitude is what defines a worthy rival. Meanwhile, the sound team was looking at Naruto's team with cold eyes while the blindfold team thought, This time we will take revenge against you. Orochimaru, who was disguised as a jounin instructor, observed Naruto's team with a smile, and next to him, a certain blonde with a dark complexion began to rap with a terrible style. Oh yay, my team has managed to reach the final and the 9 is also ready for battle. Prepare for the power. Prepare for the fight because they come with everything. Bakayaro Kanayaro, I shouted with emotion. Samway's team could only sigh in shame at the ridiculousness their sensei was making, but it seemed that very few cared. Then, Kuratsuchi looked at the 4th Hokage with a frown and thought, So he is the one who caused so much fear in my people. I have to admit that Naru brought out the handsome in him. I guess his pretty face helps him forgive the mistakes he made. On the other hand, Baki looked at Gaara with some suspicion since he saw him very differently, and this worried him as well as Orochimaru. Minato looked at all the teams in front of him with a big smile, as he thought that he was so lucky to be able to see these prospects in his new life, and that he could see his son demonstrating his talent. Hokage-sama will explain to you what the third test consists of. Pay close attention to what I tell you, Anko said seriously. Minato stood in front of all the participants and began to say, Before explaining the rules of the third test, I want to make one thing clear about the true objective of this exam. The real goal? A few thought. Do you know why ninjas from different countries are examined at the same time? It is said that it is to foster friendly relations between nations and increase the level of ninjas. In this exam, that is more special since now the 5 big nations are engaged in an alliance of great friendship, and we also have the participation of some small villages. but their true meaning should not escape them. The reason for this exam, Minato said seriously. Everyone looked at him carefully and he continued with his patented shinobi look. The reason is to act as a simulation for a possible war. This exam will help them foster a relationship with their peers from other villages so that in a future war they can fight in collaboration and friendship. After all, in previous wars there has been cooperation between villages for the same purpose, and that is what must be strengthened among us, the union of our strength and power to protect what we value most. That is why you will strengthen your ties with a fight between yourselves. And can we really do it with this exam? Akino asked with doubts. Minato smiled when he saw Akino's enthusiasm and continued with his explanation of him. That's how it is. But even so, they must keep in mind that they are responsible for the prestige of their country. They must fight to the death for their village. Prestige? Akino asked again, even more confused. Keep in mind that they will be watching you at all times. Important personalities have been invited to witness this exam. Among them are the feudal lords who entrust them with missions, and even more important, the kages and feudal lords of other countries. Even though we are in an alliance, the power differences between us set the course of our history. The strongest countries will be the ones that receive the greatest number of missions. On the contrary, weak countries will see how requests decrease. Minato explained seriously. Most understood this concept, and Minato decided to move on to the explanation at once. However, a certain person appeared before him with a bow and said while coughing, "I apologize, Hokage-sama. Gecko Hate introduces himself to you. Allow me to be the referee of this test." Minato smiled and said, "Forward." Hate looked at the participants and said, "I'm Hate, nice to meet you. Before I explain the third test, I need you to do something. To begin the pre-selection, we must do something first." Pre-selection? What is this guy saying with a look like he's going to die soon? Haven't we already passed the second test? Akino shouted without understanding. Normally yes, but since there are too many, there will be a pre-selection to reduce the number of participants. After all, there will be many special guests in the last test, and we can't let them watch useless combat. With that said, we will begin the pre-selection, and to begin, I must ask those who do not want to take the test to leave immediately. Hate said with a very cold look. Those remembered directed their gaze towards a certain person, who only smiled and raised his hand while saying, I'm leaving." Everyone looked at the person with serious eyes, and Hate looked at his list as he said, "Well, Kabuto Yakushi from the Leaf Village. You can leave." Kabuto smiled friendly at her words and left the arena while he was seen by practically everyone in the room who remembered him. Orochimaru looked at him with a sinister smile, and Kabuto just gave him hers in pure amusement. "Fufufu, have fun with this, Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto thought evilly. Minato watched him leave the room with a calculating look as he knew everything about him, and then looked at the Uchiha cousins carefully. "It seems like they're fine," he whispered to Anko. "That must be because of Foxy-kun. After all, he is the only one who can deal with the seal and modify it to his advantage. And that's why I love him," Anko whispered as he caressed her 9 Tomos signal on her neck. Minato laughed a little at that and then looked at his son as he thought. It was good that she brought Mito-sama to life, since it was thanks to her that he was able to discover the chain's extraction function from her. I just hope Orochimaru doesn't find out, or he will go after my son. Hate looked at the participants and continued with his explanation. Well, to continue, the pre-selection will consist of one-on-one combats. They will face each other under the same conditions as a normal battle. As there are now 28, 14 battles will be fought, and the winners will be able to move on to the third test. The rules are simple. They will fight until one dies, loses consciousness, or surrenders. On the other hand, I can determine if one is not capable of fighting and finishing the fight. Now, look at the screen. Everyone looked at a large screen on the wall, and Hate continued. On this screen, the names of those who will fight in each combat will be shown. Now, let's see who will face each other in the first confrontation. The screen showed several names as if it were a roulette wheel, until it stopped on 2 names. Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoro Ikado. I had to be first again, Sasuke thought with a smile. Heh, I'm dying, Yori thought maliciously. Sakura and Naruto looked at Sasuke with a smile and Hate said, Okay, the two selected ones, come forward. Sasuke and Yoroi stood before Hate while looking at each other, and the instructor said, The first fight will be played by Ikado Yoroi and Sasuke Uchiha. Before we start, does anyone have anything to object? No, said Yoroi. Everything is fine here, Sasuke said with a smile. Orochimaru looked at Sasuke with a creepy smile and both opponents moved away a little to begin the battle. I see him calm. Could it be that the seal is not having an effect on him? Yoro thought when he saw Sasuke so calm. Well, from now on the first fight will begin. Everyone go up, with the exception of the two combatants, Hate said seriously. All the participants and the Jounin went up the stairs to watch the fight from above and left Sasuke and his opponent alone. When everyone was upstairs, Orochimaru looked at Sasuke with a malicious smile and thought, Hey, Yoroi's abilities are out of the ordinary. I suspect this is going to be hell for you, Sasuke-kun. Everyone was watching the fight with excitement, while Sasuke watched Yoroi with calm eyes while thinking. He absorbs the opponent's chakra upon being touched by his hand. I guess I could use that to fight him. Well, you can start, Hate said before disappearing into Shansin. Yoroi made a hand seal and said, Let's go there. Sasuke could see with his Rinnegan how his hand was covered in chakra and he got into a combat pose to start the fight. Yoroi threw some shurikens towards Sasuke, who only dodged them easily and then also threw some shurikens that Yoroi blocked with his kunai. Then, Yoroi lunged at Sasuke and grabbed his head to start sucking his chakra. So that's it, Sasuke said, looking at Yoroi with a frown. Jujuju, I see that you realized it, Yoroi said maliciously. Orochimaru saw this with an evil smile and thought, Exact Yoroi's special ability is to absorb the opponent's chakra. This incredible absorption technique allows you to suck the opponent's physical and mental strength with the palm of your hand. And when I have sucked out all your chakra, Sasuke, you will. I have no choice but to use the power of my seal. Go ahead, unleash that power, that wonderful strength. Sasuke looked at Yoroi with cold eyes as he continued to suck his chakra, while Yoroi looked at him superiorly. However, Yoroi could feel something unusual in his system, and then he fell to the ground somewhat weakened. What is this? My chakra, instead of increasing, it is rapidly decreasing. What is happening? He thought without being able to understand. I see that you are weak. Is it because you are losing chakra? Sasuke said coldly. Then, Yoroi finally noticed Sasuke's hand on her shoulder, and could see in horror how his chakra left his body towards her. He asked without being able to believe it. Indeed. I can absorb chakra too, just faster than you. In this battle, we will see who runs out of chakra first, and who wins in this ability, Sasuke told him with a sly smile. Yoroi tried to break away from him, but Sasuke grabbed him by the neck and held him tightly at his side. Everyone saw this with wide eyes and Naruto said, It is one of the Rinnegan's abilities. His acquaintances looked at him carefully and he said, One of the Rinnegan's paths allows it to absorb an opponent's chakra quickly. I know this because I have faced that path twice, one against Pain and the other against Sasuke himself in the Valley of the End. There are only a few ways to face him and I can say that that idiot has already lost. Everyone agreed and far away from them, Orochimaru watched the fight with fury as he saw how his plan was failing, but he was interested in how Sasuke was dealing with Yoroi's ability. After a while, Yoroi collapsed to the ground cleanly and Sasuke just looked at him with cold eyes as he said, This is the difference between you and me. Don't rely so much on your ability because there may be someone who can counter it. Sayonara. Saying this, he gave him a powerful fist in the face that left him unconscious and Hate said, This fight ends here, which means that the winner of the first fight is Sasuke Uchiha and moves on to the next test. Everyone applauded Sasuke's victory, and the Uchiha walked up the stairs while smiling proudly. Orochimaru stared at him with steady eyes and then licked his lips as he thought, This gets more interesting. When Sasuke arrived with the others and congratulated him, The screen began to rotate the names until it stopped on the following combatants. Abumi Zaka vs Shino Aburame. Shino and Zaka went down to the arena to fight, but the fight was very easy thanks to Shino managing to defeat him by using his insects to inject him with a toxin that would leave him unconscious. After Shino's victory, the screen shouted the names again until it stopped at the following names. Misumi Tsuga vs Kankuro. Like Shino, Kankuro was able to win his fight with great ease, and after he went up with his brothers, the screen showed the following names, surprising most. Sakura Haruno vs Kin. The first different combat from his past life had appeared. Chapter 29. The preliminaries continue. Sakura and Kin walked down the stairs towards the arena while the sound ninja looked at the pink-haired girl maliciously. Upon arriving at the center with hate, the Chunin looked at them seriously and said, "You already know the rules. Are you ready for combat?" They both agreed, and Hate said, "Okay, start." With that, he disappeared to let them fight. Left alone, Kin looked at Sakura with a malicious smile as she said, "Look at you, a pretty girl wanting to be a ninja. Don't you think you should have stayed at home brushing that beautiful hair of yours instead of being here playing ninjas?" Sakura just remained calm while Ino yelled angrily, "Forehead, beat that stupid woman for what she said." Kin just smiled evilly at this shout and said, "Nice nickname, and I can see why. After all, that forehead is so hidden that not even a painting would make it more beautiful." Then, he took out some senbons from his pocket and threw them towards Sakura. The pinkette only made some hand seals, and she slammed her hand on the ground while she screamed, "Doton Dorihiki!" Instantly, a large wall of earth rose in front of Sakura, causing the senbons to become embedded in it. Kin saw this with his eyes open and could hear Sakura's voice telling him, "Unfortunately for you, I know very well what your technique consists of. These senbons contain bells that produce a sound capable of putting your opponent in a genjutsu. Too bad, I'm very good at genjutsu and I was able to identify your strategy. Thanks to having the Doton, I was able to create a wall that blocks your senbons so that they do not affect me." Kin gritted his teeth and rushed towards the wall while pulling out more senbons and shouting, "Don't believe the big deal. Pretty, you may have been able to see through my technique, but that doesn't mean you can beat me." He jumped over the wall to throw the senbons directly at him, but was surprised to see that no one was there. "What are you looking for?" "I'm right here," said a voice behind her. Kin turned around in disbelief and could see Sakura standing behind her with a fist ready to hit her. "My forehead may be very big, but at least it won't be covered in blood like yours." Shinero, the pink-haired girl, shouted as she threw her powerful fist at him. The fist hit Kin's forehead, sending her straight to the ground with great force and creating a huge crater with her body. Everyone saw this with wide eyes, and Akino shouted with joy, "Good, that's my teammate." Sakura landed on the ground, and Hate checked Kin's condition and then said, "Participant Kin is unconscious. The winner is Sakura Haruno." Everyone began to applaud for Sakura's victory, and Ino shouted, "That's how it is done, front." Sakura went up the stairs to meet her team, and when she arrived, Sasuke said to her, "Well done. You have proven to be one of the best in this village." Sakura smiled at his praise, and then Naruto went towards her to give her a tender kiss on her lips. When the kiss ended, Naruto said, "Congratulations, Sakura-chan. I'm sure Tsunade-ba-chan would be proud of you." Sakura blushed at those words and said, "Thank you, Naruto. I just wish she was with us so she could have seen my victory." In a casino in the country of fire, a certain busted blonde was playing cards when she felt something on her chest. "How weird. I feel really proud right now. Employee, I bet everything I have. I feel like today is my lucky day," she said with a big smile. Back in Konoha, after Sakura's battle had ended and Kin had been taken to the Namikaze mansion at Naruto's request, Hate reported the following battle. Tenten vs. Kuratsuchi's partner. The battle was easy for Tenten as she had learned more from her companions and achieved victory. The next fight. Shikamaru Nara vs. the one with the bandages. Even though the one with the bandages tried to get to Shikamaru, he held him back with his shadow jutsu and lost the battle easily. With Shikamaru's victory, the screen showed the next names. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Yujito. Everyone looked at the screen with wide eyes and Kakashi said, "Battle between two Jinchurikis? I don't know if they were put on purpose or if it was Kami-sama's work." Killer Bee looked at the screen with a smile and started shouting, "Oh yay, battle between 9 and 2, this will be epic, Bakayaro Kanayaro." Everyone looked at him with a drop of sweat and Orochimaru looked at him with an excited smile. "I must admit, this is excellent. I'll be able to see how strong Naruto-kun is against the Jinchuriki, and if it's how I imagined it. Show me what you're made of, Naruto-kun," I thought with emotion. Minato could only remain calm as he watched his son and Yujito go down to the arena to fight. "Well, this is unexpected. Naruto will have a tough test now when facing Bcuz, and although he has great power, it will be difficult to fight against Matatabi. Let's see how he does it," he thought curiously. Guy looked at Kakashi with a big smile and said, "Now things have gotten interesting, Kakashi. Yujito is a great student, and I have taught her many things. This will be a battle where it will be possible to see who is capable of teaching a Jinchuriki better." Kakashi just looked at him with a frown and said, "Sorry, did you say something?" Guy clenched his fist in fury and shouted, "You're still the same, Kakashi." Naruto and Yujito had arrived at the arena and Hate looked at them with some nervousness. "Well, you are the next to fight. I only ask that you do not destroy the tower. Are you ready?" he said, looking at them pleadingly. "I'm ready," Naruto said. "Me too," Yujito said. Hate nodded and shouted, "In that case, start." And with that, he disappeared from the battlefield. Naruto looked at Yujito seriously and said, "Yujito-chan, for this fight I will not use what you already know and I will only use my usual techniques and my Bcuz. Are you okay with that?" Yujito looked at him with a cat-like smile and said, "Really? Well, it's a shame because my new sensei taught me many useful things and I wanted to try them with all your power. But I understand. After all, if we use 100% of our power, this entire place would be destroyed. Very well, show me what you have." They both got into a fighting stance and everyone watched the battle with excitement. A good while passed, until both of them launched themselves against each other to begin a taijutsu battle of great power. Naruto used a kata called Fox style that Kurumi taught him and Yujito used one called Cat style that Matatabi also taught her mixed with Guy's style of hers. Everyone saw how Yujito had a clear advantage in that field and Guy said proudly, "He, Yujito has youth inside him. She has become an excellent taijutsu fighter, and there are very few capable of surpassing her. I've only seen Rock Lee and Niji put up a good fight after she taught him my taijutsu. Naruto-kun will have to work hard to overcome it." Everyone watched the fight to see how Naruto handled it, and saw how the blonde was blocking and dodging every blow from his blonde fiancé. Curse, I should have figured that Sujota-sensei would make her a taijutsu master. I'd better be more serious, Naruto thought in frustration. Then, he moved away a little and formed the seal of his favorite jutsu of his. Kagebushin no jutsu, he shouted loudly. Instantly, about 100 clones appeared in the arena and Yujito saw this with neutral eyes. "I admit that it is a great technique, for many things. But even so, it won't help you overcome my taijutsu," she said, getting into a combat pose. The 100 clones charged against them to start the battle again, and Yujito only began to throw rapid blows at all the clones to eliminate them. However, I noticed something when trying to do it, and it was that they didn't dissipate with a single blow. "How?" she asked as she continued hitting them. The Naruto clones smiled and one of them said, "That's how it is. My clones have already reached a point where it takes a lot to dispel each one. My chakra and my resistance are at a level where even my clones can withstand several days and even many blows without disappearing." At this, everyone's eyes widened and most of the girls couldn't help but lick their lips at such information. Then, the Naruto clones rushed towards Yujito and shouted, "Nine Tails Uzumaki burst." 9 clones of Naruto began to kick her hard into the sky and then the original kicked her in the stomach, sending her to the ground hard. Everyone watched this in amazement and Kakashi said, "It's basically Lee's technique. but altered to a Nine-Tails version. Awesome. Yujito fought up from the ground and looked at Naruto with a cat-like smile as she said, "This has become fun. Let's move on to another field to have more fun." Saying this, I performed several hand signs and shouted, "Katon, Bio and Hoka Cat Flame Roaring Fire." Instantly, several spheres of fire were launched from his mouth towards the Naruto clones, finally managing to eliminate some of them. Those who remained began to make signs with their hands and shouted, "Suetun, Swishoha Clash of Water Waves." A large vortex of water formed in front of him and then exploded, creating a large wave that headed towards Yujito quickly. Yujito's fireballs crashed into the wave and instantly turned into steam that spread throughout the arena. Everyone saw this without words and was trying to see what was happening. When the steam cleared, they saw the two Jinchurikis looking at each other with big smiles. "It was a good demonstration of your ninjutsu, Naruto. Now let's continue our battle. Matatabi wants his sister to show her what she's made of," Yujito said with a cat-like smile. "TCH, what a cat she is. That Matatabi only says it because we are the most similar of the 9. After all, we are both the ones who look more animal-like, being like dogs and cats," Kurumi said with a growl. Naruto could only laugh at his beloved little fox's words and turned his attention to the fight he had. They both stared at each other and after a while, they rushed against each other to resume their taijutsu combat with more excitement. Everyone watched this with excitement as they felt each blow shake the area and both had a look of intense happiness from such an energetic fight. Naruto then turned away from her and performed hand signals before shouting, "Suetun, Taihoden Water Canyon." He fired a powerful jet of water from his mouth that hit Yujito, sending her flying towards the wall of the arena. Yujito stood up with difficulty and then made signs with her hands as she shouted, "Raitun, Raikyu Lightning Ball." Instantly, multiple spheres of lightning appeared in front of her and launched themselves at Naruto at immense speed. Naruto moved at a similar speed to avoid them, but one of them managed to hit him and completely electrocuted him. Still, the blonde remained standing and looked at Yujito with a smile. "Good, you managed to give me a good hit. Now how about we raise the level?" he said cleverly. Instantly, his body was covered in an orange and black and luminous mantle. It was the Kurama state of the Bcuz of her. Everyone watched this in amazement, and Orochimaru watched this with wide eyes. "Didn't he confront me with all his power? Damn you, Naruto-kun!" he thought furiously. Yujito looked at the Bcuz cloak she possessed and smiled felinely as she said, "I am pleased that you use your Kurama mode in my combat because I will show you that I have not been left behind." She closed her eyes and concentrated hard so that later everyone could see how a similar mantle formed on her Deella, only of blue fire, and she acquired feline features on her face. "Did she achieve the same thing?" Kakashi asked with wide eyes. Guy smiled proudly at him and said, "We managed to achieve it since Matatabi-chan has achieved a good understanding with her and has allowed her to use all her power. Now Yujito-chan possesses the flames of youth in all its splendor." Everyone looked at Yujito's new form in admiration and Naruto was shocked by what he saw. "It's like a beautiful Nikomata," said the enthralled one. Yujito opened her eyes, showing one green eye and one yellow eye in them and said in a feline voice, "This is my new maximum level, Naruto. I called it Matatabi mode. Do you like it?" Naruto just looked at her impressed and said, "Well, yes. I'm surprised you achieved the same thing I did, but I like it. This has become more exciting." Thus, both of them launched themselves against each other at a speed beyond imagination. They continued with their taijutsu combat, but this time at a level consistent with the Bcuz. Everyone saw this with their eyes wide open and felt how the tower shook with every blow they hit. The battle lasted until Naruto pushed her to move quickly throughout the arena thanks to his Kurumi cloak of her. "Hey, do you think that surprises me? I'll show you what speed is," Yujito said with a feline smile. In that way, she disappeared like a blue lightning bolt and everyone was stunned to only be able to see two rays, one yellow and one blue, moving throughout the battlefield. On some occasions, the rays collided with each other, causing an impact that shook the entire battlefield, astounding all the spectators. The speed battle continued for a while until both Jinchurikis stopped at the corners of the arena. Brilliant. I haven't had a good battle in a long time since I came back, Naruto said, somewhat agitated. Heh, I say the same. There have been few who could fight me in the past, and the truth is, you are the only one who has been able to give me a great battle, Yujito said with emotion. Then, they both got serious and Naruto said, Okay, it's time to end this. Now I will use everything I have to defeat you. Saying this, everyone watched as he created a Rasengan the size of a basketball in his hand loaded with great power. Will he use the Rasengan now? Akino asked in surprise. The Rasengan? That damn brat knows how to use his father's jutsu. This is bad for my plans, Orochimaru thought angrily. Kakashi looked at Guy and said, I'm sorry, Guy, but Naruto will end this once and for all. Once he uses the Rasengan, it's over for his opponents. However, Guy just smiled at him with a radiant smile and said, We'll see, Kakashi. You will see that the flames of Yujito-chan's youth are very burning now. Kakashi frowned at him and watched the fight to see what he meant. Yujito just looked at the Rasengan with calm eyes and said, I imagine that you would use that jutsu to end the fight. However, you're not the only one with a final weapon like that. He extended his hand in front of him, and everyone watched with wide eyes as a sphere of blue fire with several black dots formed in his hand. Nico Rasengan Gatun Spiral. A Matatabi-type Rasengan? Guy, what did you teach your student? Karina asked with wide eyes. Guy just smiled brightly and said, I only made his flames of youth burn with great strength. She is my second-star student after Lee. Everyone's sweat dropped at his words and turned their attention to the battle to see Naruto with a surprised expression. Incredible, you achieved your own version of the Rasengan. This is wonderful. Now we will see that Rasengan will win in this fight, he said with a big smile. And just like that, they both launched themselves at each other with their Rasengan ready for impact. When they met in the center, both Rasengan collided with each other, causing a large shock wave that shook the entire place. Everyone had to hold on to the railing to avoid falling, and with effort they could see how both spheres fought for dominance in a great battle. The fight between the two spheres lasted for a long time until in the end, Naruto's sphere managed to pass through Yujito's sphere and hit her in the chest, sending her into the wall, creating a crater. When everything calmed down, Hate went to check Yujito's condition and then shouted somewhat astonished. Yujito can't continue. The winner of this round is Naruto Uzumaki. At this, everyone began to applaud Naruto's victory, and he only went to Yujito to see if she was okay, finding her slowly waking up. Are you okay, Yujito-chan? He asked worriedly. Yujito just smiled sweetly at him and said, I'm fine. After all, I am the Jinchuriki of Matatabi and Guy-sensei's student. If I couldn't get up from a defeat, it would be a disgrace. Naruto smiled lovingly at her and helped her move across the sand to be taken to the infirmary. After he made sure she was taken to the infirmary, Naruto went up the steps to join his teammates. That was incredible, Naru! Akino shouted, hugging him. You surprised us with that battle, Sakura said, also hugging him. A battle worthy of two Jinchurikis, Sasuke said with a smile. Well done, Naruto, Ino said with a smile. Nice demonstration, Naruto Uzumaki, Gaara said with a smile. You have shown your flames of youth, Naruto Kunli said with emotion. Good fight, Naruto, Kiba said with a smile. Arf Akamaru barked with joy. Naruto looked at them with a smile and said, Thank you so much, guys. Now let's see how the next battles develop. Everyone agreed, but a little away from them, Orochimaru looked at Naruto with furious eyes. That brat has managed to defeat Jinchuriki in his most powerful state. I must be careful with him. If what I have learned about him is true, then he is the biggest thorn in my plans. After all, I still can't understand how Kushina and Minato managed to return if they were both dead. I can't help but suspect that Naruto-kun has something to do with it, and I'm going to find out. Be very careful, Naruto-kun, because if I discover what you are hiding and it causes me interest, you will be my new target, he thought with a serpentine smile. Chapter 30. End of the preliminaries. After Naruto's battle against Yujito, the following battles were somewhat entertaining. Hinata vs. Kuratsuchi's partner. Hinata won gracefully and moved on to the final round. Ino vs. Karui. Ino won thanks to her new darkness element, and moved on to the next round. Niji vs. Kiba. Unfortunately for the mutt, Niji was stronger and beat him. Temari vs. Oma. Temari managed to beat him thanks to her wind being able to defeat her lightning. Samui vs. Kuratsuchi. There was some difficulty in this one since both were good kunoichis, but the winner turned out to be Kuratsuchi. Akino vs. Choji. When the names were presented, Akino shouted with excitement. Good, it's my turn. Naruto looked at her with a smile and said, Good luck, and be very careful not to call him with the forbidden word. Akino just smiled at him and blew him a kiss while saying, Don't worry. I will win and we will be together in the final. Sasuke looked at her with narrowed eyes and asked, Will you use the Sharingan? Akino shook her head and said, No, I will fight with my own strength. I will show everyone that I don't need the Sharingan to be strong. Sasuke smiled at her words and said, In that case, go and show your true power. Akino agreed and went downstairs to meet Choji in the arena. When they were face to face, Hate said, Well, you know the rules. Are you ready for battle? They both nodded and Hate shouted, In that case, start. And he disappeared to let them fight. When they were alone, Choji formed hand signs and shouted, Jutsu expansion. With that, I have enlarged enough to turn into a human ball and rolled towards Akino in fury. The Uchiha just remained calm, and when he was about to impact with her, Akino launched a blow towards him with power. The blow caused the human ball to be sent towards the wall with force, and then Akino launched herself at Choji to hit him again furiously. The blow hit poor Choji and returned him to his original state, unconscious. Hate went to see him and shouted, Choji Akimichi can't continue. The victory goes to Akino Uchiha, and she moves on to the next round. Everyone shouted with joy for Akino's victory, and when she returned to the stands, Ino asked, But how come he could hit Choji like that? I've only seen someone hit an Akimichi like that, and it was Sarada with Choji's daughter. Sakura smiled proudly and said, It's because I trained her in Tsunade-sama's strength. After all, it is a strength that some can possess, and Akino had the aptitude. However, I couldn't teach him enough for him to reach my sensei's strength, so he is only able to defeat opponents like the Akimichi. Everyone opened their eyes surprised by this revelation, and then, Hate shouted, Very well, the last combatants, get down here right now. Sabaku no Gaara and Rock Lee, you are the last. Gaara disappeared into a shunshin of sand and reappeared on the battlefield while looking at Lee with a smile. Lee could only clench his fist in excitement and shouted, YOSH, now I will be able to show my flames of youth. Very well said, Lee, go there and shine with your beautiful youth, Guy shouted with a big smile. Guy sensei, Lee shouted, hugging him. Lee, Guy shouted, also hugging him. At this point, Naruto threw a paper to the floor of the stands and shouted, Genjutsu barrier. Instantly, a barrier formed over the two green spandex shinobi, covering them completely before the famous Radiant Sun Genjutsu formed before them. Phew! Just in time, Naruto said with relief. Then, he saw how everyone stood before him and bowed while saying, We thank you, Naruto-sama. Naruto only sweat dropped and scratched the back of his neck nervously. After a while, Naruto removed the barrier and both eyebrows were looking at everything confused. However, Lee let him pass and jumped over the fence to fall before Gaara with a big smile. Yash, we will fight again this round, Gaara-san. I'm excited, he said with a bright smile. Gaara just stayed with his and said, In that case, show me how much you have improved and if you can beat me this time. Lee smiled kindly at him, and thus, the last match of the preliminaries began. Lee began to move quickly towards Gaara, with a speed that made it difficult to see him, and Gaara just remained motionless in his place as the sand moved around him stealthily. Lee appeared before Gaara with a kick as he shouted, Hello everyone. Gaara smiled slyly and manipulated the sand in his gourd to grab Lee's leg and send him flying towards the wall, creating a crater with his body. I'm sure you haven't forgotten that my sand has a speed similar to yours, right? You will have to work hard to overcome it, Gaara said seriously. Lee just pirouetted out of the wall and landed in the center of the arena while shouting, I'm fine. Some sweat dropped at her exclamation, and Gaara laughed a little at her enthusiasm. Then, Lee launched himself at Gaara with a fast and powerful fist, which the redhead blocked with his sand, but Lee smiled as he put more force into his punch and managed to break through Gaara's defense, managing to hit him in the face. Gaara stood up from the ground after the blow and smiled as he said, I should have imagined that now you were capable of hitting me despite my defense. Well, let's see how you managed to overcome this. The sand moved at high speed with the intention of capturing Lee, which the brow only quickly avoided with jumps and agile evasion. The sand moved as if it were hands, always trying to capture Lee, and Gaara remained very calm while he watched the brow jump toward the stone fingers of the sand. Gaara looked at him with a smile and shouted, If you really want to beat me, you better release your limits, remember who I really love, and realize that if you don't, you won't be able to pass this test. Then he looked at Guy in the stands and yelled, You better give permission or your student won't be able to make it to the end. Guy smiled when he saw how Gaara respected his student and shouted to Lee with great emotion, Reed, release them, you have my permission. Lee looked at him with bright eyes and shouted, Yes, Guy-sensei. Immediately, he began to remove some kind of weights from his ankles, and this was seen by everyone with a smile. Dumbbells? Will Lee-kun seriously be able to overcome Gaara's arena by just removing a few weights? Akino asked without believing it. Temari could only laugh at his comment since she had also thought the same thing. Lee held his weight up in the air and shouted, Very good, now I can move much more easily. With that, he dropped the weights to the ground, and when they fell, they caused a huge explosion that shook the area. Guy, you're really overdoing it, Minato thought with a lot of sweat. Guy just smiled and gave a signal to Lee while shouting, Go ahead, Reed. Lee smiled excitedly, and in an instant, everyone saw how there was no one at the statue. He disappeared, Akino shouted, impressed. Gaara moved his side of him at an incredible speed and could see how Lee moved at a speed much faster than his previous life and delivered a direct blow to his face that would have almost hit him if it had not been for his sand that moved more fast. Awesome! It's faster than that time. At least I can fight with my 5 senses and without bloodlust. That way, I can enjoy a good fight, Gaara thought with a smile. Then, the sand moved with pure speed and began to chase Lee throughout the battlefield, to which the dark-eyed man had to flee at high speed from it. Everyone saw a green spot moving across the sand while a brown spot chased it at the same speed. Has Gaara managed to match Lee's speed with his sand? I know that Gaara's sand is very fast, but I didn't think he was fast enough to keep up with his eyebrows without his weights, Naruto thought in amazement. Then, everyone saw how Gaara was hit in the face by a kick from Lee, at the same time that the sand managed to hit his eyebrow, throwing him into a wall. However, everyone could see how Gaara was on the ground with a good thump as he tried to get up and smiled excitedly. Interesting, you managed to land a blow on me by making the decision to take a hit in return. It's a good strategy, said the redhead with respect. Lee stood up excitedly and shouted, Why Osei managed to hit him? Gaara saw him with a smile, and then, Lee began to move across the field at high speed and then kicked him in the jaw from below, sending him flying. This is not over, Lee shouted with emotion. He launched a quick succession of kicks at Gaara's face, lifting him further into the air until he was behind the redhead. So I'll use that, Gaara thought when he saw it. The bandages on Lee's arms began to surround Gaara until they wrapped him like a top, and then, Lee began to spin with him towards the ground at high speed. Frontal lotus flower, Lee shouted loudly. They both impacted the ground with great power, creating a large crater in the ground, and when the smoke cleared, everyone could see how Gaara was unharmed while a platform of sand had saved him. Lee had landed near him and was looking at him in amazement. Oh, I see that you have saved yourself again. Your sand has become more youthful, Lee said with admiration. Guy looked at Lee with a big smile and shouted loudly, Lee, the lotus flower blooms again. Kakashi looked at him with wide eyes and shouted. You don't want me to come back to? What thing? What are you talking about? Akino asked without understanding. Kakashi could only watch the fight knowing that he couldn't change the minds of this pair of fools and said, The 8 body doors are better known as the hidden lotus flower technique. 8 body doors? What is that? Akino asked, still not understanding. Kakashi sighed and asked Guy. Guy, I guess you can open all the doors now, right? Guy smiled slyly and said, Indeed. Kakashi sighed again and Akino asked him again. What are the 8 doors? Guy smiled at the Uchiha and said, We talk about getting rid of limitations, as preparation to execute the hidden lotus flower. There are points in the body where the chakra is concentrated as vital spaces. From the head down, there are 8 gates that limit chakra capacity. The lotus flower is executed by opening the first door called aperture, and by doing so, it releases the restrictions that the brain has. However, it is also a double-edged sword since if you open the 8 doors, you will have to pay the price with your life. Everyone watched as Lee concentrated deeply and a green aura covered him as his hair rose and he shouted. Third open door, door of life. His skin has turned red and what is that green aura? Akino shouted, watching everything in amazement. But Lee didn't stop there and concentrated even more as he shouted. Fourth open door, door of wound. At that instant, the entire battlefield shook and shattered with large rocks flying into the air. Lee disappeared from his position and launched himself against Gaara to begin hitting him with a speed that no one imagined they would see. Gaara just closed his eyes and concentrated deeply. Then, when Lee was going to hit him, a fist of sand went straight towards his eyebrow, hitting him in the face at high speed. Lee moved quickly while he wondered how it had happened and Gaara still had his eyes closed. How did a fist of sand appear and hit Gaara? Ino asked in amazement. Temari just laughed a little and said, That's because Gaara had this as a resource for taijutsu fighters. He had this same fight in his mind and thought of a way to fight opponents of his type in an honest manner. Thus, I have developed a style of taijutsu using sand. It is the Sabaka style, a style capable of fighting several opponents at the same time. Everyone was speechless at his words and could see how the sand transformed into several fists that went quickly towards Lee, who was moving at high speed throughout the field. This is going badly for Lee. If Gaara has developed a way to use the sand for hand-to-hand combat, then the doors he opened will be of no use to him, Kakashi said with pure seriousness. Lee was dodging the fists of sand that were being thrown at him at high speed and decided to raise the level a little more. Fifth door open, door of spirituality, Lee shouted with fury. He launched himself at Gaara to hit him in the stomach, causing him to vomit blood, but the redhead smiled as several fists of sand were launched at Lee to hit him fiercely in the body. Heh, I used your same strategy. I receive a blow in exchange for you receiving mine, Gaara said with a smile. But Lee only smiled at him even more and shouted. Thank you for this battle, Gaara-san. Now, I'll finish this once and for all. Then, he used his bandages to hold Gaara's body to pull him towards him. But Gaara returned the same smile and said, That seems fine to me. Let's decide this with one last attack. Then, the sand concentrated on one and formed a gigantic fist of sand that began to move throughout the battlefield and then headed towards Lee. They both lunged at each other with their attacks while placing all their hopes on him. Hidden lotus flower, Lee shouted, hitting Gaara in the stomach. Sabaka no Ken desert fist, Gaara shouted, impacting his fist on Lee's body. Both attacks caused a huge explosion that shook the entire place, and everyone had to hold on due to the tremor that shook them. When everything calmed down, they turned their attention to the sand as the sand fell, revealing the result of the battle. When everything became clear, the result left them in shock. The winner of this fight is Gaara of the Sand, Hate shouted. Everyone could see how Lee was on the ground, clearly defeated, while Gaara was on his knees, although he was somewhat bleeding. I'm not using the sand cape? Sakura asked curiously. Gaara approached Lee with a smile, and the same brow looked at him with his own as he said, It was a great fight, but why are you bleeding? Don't you always have a layer of sand covering you? Gaara extended his hand kindly and said, "In this battle, I decided not to use it as a sign of respect towards you. I fought without more protection than my sand shield to honor your effort." Lee looked at him with tears at those words and said with feeling, "You are a great person, Gaara-san." He took Gaara's hand while they were both applauded by almost everyone in the place for such a display of honor among ninjas, although people like Gaara's sensei, Baki and Orochimaru were taken back by the redhead's attitude. Then, Hade coughed and shouted. And with this, the preliminaries of the third test end. Chapter 31, Preparations for the Final. After the Gaara vs. Lee battle, everyone who passed the preliminaries stood before the Hokage seriously. Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, Shino, Kankuro, Trai, Shikamaru, Hinata, Este, Neji, Temari, Kuratsuchi, Akino, Gaara. In total there were 14 finalists, so in total there would be about 7 fights in the final to start. Minato looked at them with a smile and Hade said, "I congratulate you for having passed the third test of the Chunin exam. Well done. Now, the Yondaime will explain to you what you need to know for the final." Minato took a step forward and looked at them all seriously to say, "Now, I am going to explain to you what is necessary for the final. They were already told previously that the final will be held in front of the entire world. You are the representatives of your respective countries and you must demonstrate your strength to everyone. So, the test will start in a month." Akino opened her eyes and asked, "Won't we start here and now?" Minato looked at her with an amused smile and said, "We need that time to make preparations. We will use this time to inform the feudal lords and ninja chiefs of each country of the result of the preliminary selection and invite them to attend the final test. Additionally, you will also use this time to prepare. In other words, they will use this time to train and become stronger for the finals. They will use this time to create new cards to face their opponents and to rest, which is very important. Now, we will do something else to prepare for the final." He looked at Anko, who nodded and took a box to pass it to all the participants. "Take just one piece of paper and don't show it to anyone," she said with a smile. Everyone took a piece of paper from the box and looked at what was inside with a serious look. When he reached Naruto, he could see that this time he got the number 14. "Do you each already have one? Now say the number you got in order, starting from the left," Minato said with a smile. "The 8th, Kankuro said. "I have 14, Naruto said. "I have number 7, Sasuke said. "I have 11, Sakura said. "I have number 1, Neji said. "I have number 3, Akino said. "Troublesome, I have 13, said Shikamaru with a dejected expression. "I have 5, Gaara said. "I'm the second, Kuratsuchi said. "I have 4, Tenten said looking at Akino. "I have 12, Ino said looking at Sakura with a challenging smile. "I have 9, Hinata said, waiting for her opponent. "I have 6, Shino said looking at Gaara. "And I have 10, Temari said looking at Hinata. Everyone looked at each other seriously and Minato said, "It's time to announce the order of the final phase tournament fights." "Was that what the draw was for?" Akino shouted without being able to believe it. "Show them the schematic, Ibiki," Minato said looking at the torturer. "Yes, sir," Ibiki said with an amused smile. He turned the cardboard he was holding and on it they could see a diagram that showed the order of the combats that would take place. Prime Battle, Neji Hyuga vs. Kuratsuchi. Second Fight, Akino Uchiha vs. Tenten. Terrace Battle, Gaara vs. Shino Aburame. Court Battle, Sasuke Uchiha vs. Sabaku no Kankuro. Quintuplet Battle, Hinata Hyuga vs. Sabaku no Temari. Sixth Fight, Sakura Haruno vs. Ino Yamanaka. September Battle, Naruto Uzumaki vs. Shikamaru Nara. Naruto looked at Shikamaru with a smile and thought, "The Hokage versus his advisor? This will be interesting. What a problem. If I could, he would give me up once the fight started, but knowing Naruto, he won't let me do it. Shikamaru thought with anxiety. So I get to fight Ino in the finals? Well, we will see who is better now. Sakura thought with a smile. It's my turn against the gun fanatic. Perfect, this way I will show her that she won't be able to get into my dream, Akino thought, looking at Tenten with challenge. It's my turn against the Tsuchikige's granddaughter. I guess I'll have some pressure facing former Tsuchikige. Niji thought with a sigh. I will face Shino-san. I think it will be a good way to entertain myself since we both use long-distance attacks. Gaara thought, looking at Shino with a smile. I will face Gaara's brother this time. I have to take care of his puppets since they will not be affected by my Sharingan, nor my Rinnegan. Sasuke thought seriously. So I will face Temari. I guess it's a good way to show off my newfound strength. Hinata excited thoughtfully. Perfect, I'll face Sakura, it will be a good opportunity to demonstrate my improvements. Ino thought with a smile. Minato smiled at the excited vibe of each of the finalists, and continued explaining the end of the tournament. Well, you should know that we will do something interesting in the final, and that is that the winner of the 7th fight will go to the semi-final round and will fight against the winner of the first fight from the previous round. From now on you can think about strategies, rest, or do anything else you want. If you have any questions before concluding this matter, now is the time. Shikamaru raised his hand and said, I have a question, Hokage-sama. Go ahead, Minato told him kindly. The fact that a tournament is held means that there will only be one winner. Therefore, only one of us will be promoted to Chunin? Shikamaru asked seriously. Minato smiled, knowing that he did it for those who did not yet have knowledge of the method, and responded. Not necessarily. There will be a jury in the test that will observe the combats made up of the Kages, some ninja chiefs, the feudal lords of the countries that commission the missions, and me. The jury will have the role of evaluating them all during the tournament, and if we decide that someone is worthy of promotion to Chunin, we will grant them the rank even if they are defeated in combat. Does that mean we can all be promoted? Akino asked hopefully. Exactly. How is it also possible that not everyone can achieve it? Progressing in the tournament is equivalent to earning more points from the jury. Have they understood it? Well, it's over, good job, see you in a month, Minato said, ending the event. She looked at her son with a serious expression, from which he understood that she wanted him to go home to talk to him. Akino just stood still as she thought. If I manage to win, I will have to face the Hyuga's cousin or that Kunoichi from IWA. I prefer that Kuratsuchi girl, it looks like she is a strong Kunoichi and I want to fight her. With this, everyone left to begin their month of training. A while later, at the Namikaze's residence, Naruto was in the dorm room before his parents, and Minato told him seriously. Naruto, I can know that you want me to train you, but I don't know if it is fair for the Hokage to train one of the participants. Therefore, maybe your mother can. But Naruto stopped him with his hand and said with the same seriousness. Dad, I have already predicted that. For this reason, I made sure that my team receives training from some people who can make them improve, and about my training. I want to invite you both to the hot springs. They both looked at each other with a drop of sweat, and Kushina asked. And what can you learn in the hot springs? You didn't want to spy on the girls on them, did you? Naruto laughed a little at this question and said with a malicious smile. Don't worry, Mother. We're just going to relax a little. Mom, I want you to enjoy the hot springs on the women's side so you can go to the happy ending. Dad, you and I will go to the male side to talk about my training very seriously while we relax. Are you okay with it? Minato looked at him with some doubts and said, Well, I don't understand why you want to take us to the hot springs instead of asking us to train you, but we can't deny a little relaxation. You're right. I deserve some relaxation, and I can leave Hitomi with Mikoto to take care of her. Let's go to those hot springs, Kushina said with a big smile. Naruto smiled happily at his parents' response and said, Very good, in that case, we will go to some very special hot springs. Meanwhile, at the Uzumaki complex, Sakura was entering the complex along with Ino and Akino since Naruto told them that certain people would train them there. Who do they think are training us? Ino asked excitedly. Don't know. But Naruto told us that each one should go to the meeting place separately, Sakura said seriously. In that case, see you later. Let's do everything to be able to pass this tournament and achieve our dreams, Akino said, addressing his destination. Sakura and Ino said goodbye to her, and they both separated to go to one of the houses in the complex. With Sakura, she had entered her home to find Kami waiting for her with a smile. Kami-sama? What are you doing here? The pink-haired girl asked without believing it. Kami just smiled at her words and said, I decided to come to the village to take care of your training. I asked Naruto-kun to send you here so I can train you myself. Sakura was dumbfounded at this. Kami herself would train her for the tournament. She stiffened and said with complete respect, I appreciate it very much, Kami-sama. I will be taking care of him from now on. Kami laughed a little at this and said with amusement, You don't have to be so formal in front of me. You are my champion, and it wouldn't be fair if I didn't train you for something like this. But yes, it's Kami-sensei when I trained you. Well, get ready because it will be a very serious training and I want to see your results in the tournament. Are you going to the tournament? Sakura asked without believing it. Of course I and other deities will go to see them fight in that tournament. Did you think we wouldn't do it? It will be a good opportunity to rest from our hard work, and we can enjoy a good show. Now let's start training, Kami said with a big smile. Sakura smiled at him in the same way and shouted, Hello, God. Meanwhile with Ino. She had entered her destination and saw Yami before her, who was looking at her with a big smile. Yami-sama. I'm happy to see her again, Ino said happily. Yami laughed a little at her attitude and urged him to sit in front of her. Ino sat down and the goddess of darkness said to her, It's good to see you again, dear Ino. I am here to personally take care of your training. Ino looked at her with wide eyes and asked, A goddess, how are you going to train me? That's how it is. After all, Kami will be training your opponent, and it wouldn't be fair for her to be the only one. I will train you myself in the dark arts, and I will be watching you in the tournament to see the fruit of our training, Yami said with amusement. Ino looked at her dumbfounded and then said with great emotion, Will you go to the tournament to see the fight? Great, I promise you that you will be proud of me. Yami laughed, even more amused by the blonde's enthusiasm, and said, I imagine. However, I warn you that my training will be very difficult and tortuous. Are you willing to accept my training? Ino only showed a face full of determination and said, I won't back down. I'm willing to endure torture to become stronger. I am in your care, Yami-sensei. Yami smiled at his response and then put on a look so dark that even Madara would shit himself. In that case, let's start training. On the other hand, with Akino. She had entered the main house of the complex and found Mito waiting for her seriously. Come in, young Uchiha. She was waiting for you, the redhead said with a serious face. Akino approached her and sat in front of her, and then asked her, Mito Oba-chan, will you be the one who trains me? Mito had a twitch in her head at the fact that this young woman called her grandmother like Naruto, and sighed to say seriously, That's how it is. I have asked Naruto-kun to let me train you since I want to instruct you in the arts of Fuinjutsu of the Uzumakis. In addition to that, I will also teach you Kenjutsu and other techniques with which you can be a kunoichi of the same level as me and my granddaughter. Tell me, do you accept my training? I must warn you that it is very hard and I will not be merciful to you. Akino looked at her with stars in her eyes and said with great emotion, I agree, train me, Mito Oba-chan, with your training. I will be one step closer to my dream. Mito smiled at his dedication and goal and said, Very well, in that case we will start training right now. Hi, Mito-sensei, Akino shouted with great emotion. Konoha Hot Springs, men sighed. Naruto and Minato were in the hot water, enjoying the extreme relaxation that the water gave them, and the older blonde said, This is so relaxing, at least it relieves me of the stress of my work. You're right, father. There were times when I went to the hot springs with my family and managed to get rid of the fatigue from so much work, Naruto said with a big smile. However, Minato looked at his son with a serious expression and said, Naruto, I know very well that you have an ulterior motive behind this. What is the real reason for us to have come here? Naruto only turned his gaze to the wooden wall dividing the male and female sides to find his target peeking through a hole in the wall. Well, he's the reason we came here, Naruto said, pointing at the man. Minato turned to look at who was talking about, and upon seeing him, his eyes widened. Before them, there was a white-haired man in a red traditional dress with a headband that had the kanji 4 oil on his head, and he was laughing pervertedly as he looked through the hole. Minato continued to stare at him with his mouth open, and Naruto stood up from the water to walk stealthily towards the wall while he moved to his father not to make a sound. When he was behind the man, Naruto took a deep breath and then shouted in a loud voice, "Ka-chan, Ero Sennin is spying on the hot springs from here." The white-haired man looked at him with furious eyes because of that, but he stayed still when Uzurigan looked into his eyes, and having his memories of him back, he recognized him instantly. "Naruto?" he said without being able to believe it. However, the wall was destroyed into pieces, and before the three, Kushina in her angry mode looked at the man with murderous eyes. "Yaro Sennin," she shouted with fury. "Kushina? How is this possible?" the man shouted with his eyes wide open. However, nothing could save him from the cruel beating that the Uzumaki began to give him with all the fury he had, all while he was watched by Minato, who looked at him with pity, and by Naruto, who only smiled and said, "It's good to see you again, Ero Sennin." Chapter 32, Jiraiya's Return. Naruto, Minato, and a very angry Kushina were watching a bruised Jiraiya on the ground, while he groaned in pain from the blows the redhead gave him. "I think you went too far with my sensei, Kushina," Minato said, checking his sensei on him, very worried. "Humph, I just gave him his punishment for not being with my childhood Sochi in his past life. Besides, he's not the only one I have a score to settle with. Tsunade Bachan is also going to listen to me for not being here for my little one," Kushina said furiously. Both could only sweat as they imagined the redhead facing the blonde while she yelled at her furiously, and the Sannin would surely respond in the same way with her temper. Then they heard Jiraiya get up from the ground while she strangely recovered from the blows she received. "What happened to me? I thought Kushina had returned and was hitting me as if she were a furious Tsunade and that Naruto was next to a living Minato," he said, looking around. But he looked at the Namake's family in front of him, waving at him, and fell to the ground on his butt as he backed away and pointed his finger at them while shouting, "How is it possible? You two should be dead, even I should be dead. Naruto, what's going on?" Naruto only laughed a little at his teacher's confusion, although he was really happy to have him alive again, and said, "Calm down, Ero Sennin. I'll tell you everything that happens, but let's go somewhere quieter." Jiraiya only agreed seriously, and like that, the four of them went towards the Namake's residence to talk about Naruto's return. Meanwhile, with Sasuke, he was before Kakashi in the Uchiha complex, and the silver-haired man said, "Well, I have to train you again for the finals. This time it will be more difficult for you since there will be opponents who come from our past life and will also have improved their techniques. For this reason, I will teach you some new weapons that I was able to use in my time as Hokage so that you can be more prepared. Also, Naruto asked me to train you in the use of your new signal so that you can master it when you go to the tournament. Do you agree with the training?" Sasuke just agreed, and in that way, the black-haired man's training at the hands of Kakashi began. On the other hand, at the Namake's residence, everyone was in the dining room of the residence, the same place where Naruto's parents had revealed to Jiraiya that they used his character's name for their son, and now, he was wide-eyed at the new revelation they had given him. "I can't believe it. You've been through so much since I died, and yet, you were able to achieve your dream. It's incredible what you've told me. First, the fact that you were able to defeat my student Nagato, and were able to make him see reason. Then the fact that you were able to befriend your Biju during that war. Also the fact that everything that happened was a plan by that Kagai girl and her son Zetsu to revive her. Then, the fact that you were able to defeat her with the help of the Sage of the Six Paths, and that you had to fight against Sasuke because he took a wrong path. And finally, the fact that you managed to become Hokage, you formed a family with the Hyuga princess, and that you had to fight those Otsutsukis. I don't know what to say about all that," Jiraiya said with a really pale expression. Naruto could only sigh at her reaction and said, "Imagine that you would react like that, but all that happened even though it sounds incredible. However, old Hagoromo, his mother, his brother, and the goddesses gave me a second chance when that damned Ishikki killed us, and now we are here to make sure we forge a better future." Jiraiya just looked at him with a smile and said, "I must admit that you have achieved so many things that I never thought you would achieve. Damn, the best thing is that you were able to get yourself a wonderful woman in your past life. Well done. Naruto, you hit the jackpot, and best of all, now you have the dream of all the men in the world, a new life surrounded by many beautiful women, and among them are the goddesses themselves. I am really proud of you, my disciple," Jiraiya shouted with big tears and a thumbs up. This made the entire family sigh, and Naruto said regretfully, "I was already wondering when you would come with your perverted comments. Well, on that topic I can say that I was truly blessed. The goddesses noticed me and chose me to be with them. And I must clarify that the reason I can be with everyone who loves me is because Hinata-chan allows it, since he was not willing to accept such a thing if she didn't want to. But I guess how you say, I'm really lucky." Jiraiya smiled wickedly at him and said in a perverted tone, "You're right. You are a man full of pure luck, and now you can fulfill all your perverted fantasies with these beautiful beauties. This is wonderful. It's the perfect opportunity to climb to the top. I can now see the following books of my wonderful work. The Adventure of the Greatest Shinobi in the Ika Harem Paradise. It will be glorious." But he couldn't finish as Kushina gave him a powerful blow to the head, leaving him on the ground, and the redhead looked at him with a fury so great that it seemed like it could surpass that of the goddesses themselves. "I forbid you to create that obscenity at the expense of my little one, or I will be the one who kills you," Kushina shouted with anger. Naruto and Minato looked at their sensei with pity for his suffering, and after being on the ground for a while in pain, Jiraiya stood up, recovered, and looked at everyone with a very serious face. "Well, joking aside, the matter of the Otsutsukis is very serious. If one could only create the destruction of the shinobi world in a time where Naruto was in his prime, then we have to become strong enough to prevent it from happening again. I suppose that thanks to the help of Kaguya and the goddesses, we can be a little prepared for that event, but we can't trust ourselves. For the moment, we must take care of the current problems," he said. "You're right. First we must deal with Orochimaru and Akatsuki. However, we are currently dealing with the snake, and Sasuke will be the key piece in this. With Akatsuki, we will have to wait for them to start their movement to start ours," Naruto said with the same seriousness. "In that case, let's take care of your training first." "I guess you'll leave it to me, Minato," said Jiraiya, looking at the older blonde with a smile. Minato just nodded and said, "It will be the best. You are his sensei, and I think that there is no one who can train him like you." Jiraiya smiled proudly and stood up as he said, "Very good. In that case, let's go to the courtyard to start training, Naruto." Naruto smiled happily and said, "Of course, Ero Sannin." Jiraiya could only sigh at the nickname and said, "I can't deny that I'm happy that we're back, but hearing that nickname from you again is frustrating. I thought that by becoming Hokage you would have matured a little." But it was Kushina who spoke. "Come on, Ero Sannin, don't get angry like that. Did you really think my son would give up the nickname just because he grew up and became Hokage? You will always be an Ero Sannin no matter how much time passes." Jiraiya's head twitched and he said regretfully, "They are mother and son without a doubt." Everyone laughed at his comment, and Naruto followed Jiraiya into the courtyard to begin the training he would give him. When they arrived, Jiraiya asked him, "Well, Gaki? Did Orochimaru manage to put the 5-pointed seal on the Kyuubi's again?" "Not fortunately. We were able to deal with him in the forest, and he had to flee after placing the curse signal on Sasuke and Akino," Naruto said with a calm look. Jiraiya thought a little and said, "With that girl, no wonder Orochimaru put the signal on her as a backup plan. What did you do to deal with that?" Naruto only showed the diamond chains and said, "Use this. It turns out that they are very useful in cases of strange things in the body. With them you can extract whatever is invading a person's body, and you can also introduce whatever it is as well. With them I was able to extract Orochimaru's essence from both of them, and then introduce Kurumi's chakra so that it could help them use senjutsu. Jiraiya opened his eyes at these words and said, "That's like Tsunade's signal. I guess it will serve as a switch for senjutsu. Interesting. In any case, Orochimaru will not remain calm when he finds out that his plan failed." Naruto just smiled slyly and said, "That's why Sasuke is the key. The plan is for him to go to him as if influenced by the signal, and when they are alone, Sasuke will return his memories of him so he will be on our side. Of course, Sasuke will stay with him and Kabuto for 3 years so that together they plan a strategy against Akatsuki. Meanwhile, they will be in contact with the village to be an external and scientific force as it was in our past life." Jiraiya whistled in amazement as he saw that the blonde had managed to come up with such an efficient plan. He looked like he really had been a wonderful Hokage in his past life and smiled as he said, "Well planned, Gaki. In that case, we will work on improving your current techniques and your Uzurigan. I think I can help you a little with the Rinnegan techniques and a little with the Sharingan and Byakugan since I have knowledge of them. Also, I have interest in that Rasen Shuriken you created. Can you show me?" Naruto agreed and created the Rasen Shuriken in his hand as the Sannin watched him carefully. Incredible, the wind chakra is spinning around the Rasengan like a Fuma Shuriken. However, I can see that if not used correctly it can be harmful to the arm. I suppose that the fact that you managed to use senjutsu helped you solve that problem, said the white-haired man after looking at the technique. That's how it is. Thanks to the toads, I was able to solve the Rasen Shuriken problem by being able to use senjutsu. Speaking of them, I want to re-sign the toad contract, Arrow Sannin, Naruto said seriously. Jiraiya nodded and slammed his hand on the ground to summon a toad holding a huge scroll in its mouth. The white-haired man took it and opened it before Naruto as he said, "You already know what to do to be a summoner of the toads again. But are you sure you can fight Gamabunta to complete the contract?" Naruto just put his name on the scroll with his blood and said with a sly smile, "Calm down, Arrow Sannin. I will manage to pass the test again, and he will have to accept me as his summoner. I guess it's time to call him." He bit his thumb and made the corresponding hand signals to summon the boss toad. "Kuchios no Jutsu," Naruto shouted, putting a lot of his chakra. Instantly, a large explosion appeared in the courtyard of the residence, and a loud voice could be heard throughout the place. "Who have summoned me? Jiraiya, it's you?" Jiraiya could only look at the big toad boss with some nerves and shouted, "Hey, Gamabunta, we're down here." Gamabunta only looked down to find Jiraiya next to a young man with blonde and red hair who was looking at him with a smile. "Jiraiya, I see you've gotten older. And who is that brat?" shouted the toad in a serious voice. "This is Naruto Uzumaki. He is Minato and Kushina's son and he just signed the toad contract," Jiraiya said seriously. Gamabunta looked at Naruto with wide eyes and said in a loud voice, "He is the one of the new prophecy." Naruto and Jiraiya looked at each other with concern and the white-haired man. "What new prophecy? Did the old toad give a prophecy other than the one he gave me a long time ago?" Gamabunta only puffed on his pipe and said seriously, "That's how it is. That old man called all of us toads to a meeting and after his tirade of having forgotten what he was going to say and who we were, he told us a new prophecy that warned of the appearance of this boy." Naruto suspected this had to do with his return and asked, "Could you tell us what the prophecy says, Gamabunta?" The toad chief blew out some smoke and recited the old toad's words. "From the story already told, the chosen one will return, guided by the deities, and his story will be told again. He will be our summoner again, and his destiny will be to save our world again. But only if he manages to gather everyone who can help him, the story can continue. Well, the false gods will return in his way, and if he does not achieve his mission, the tragedy in his history will repeat itself." That was the prophecy that the old man told us, and we have been waiting for several years for our new summoner to meet him. I never imagined that I would be Minato and Kushina's tadpole. Naruto began to analyze the new prophecy seriously. He understood the part that talked about his return and about his mission. However, he couldn't understand the part that talked about gathering those who can help him, since that meant that there were people he had to look for in order to avoid the tragedy of his past life. Then Jiraiya said, I can understand a little of the prophecy, and I can assume that the old toad saw it when Naruto returned. So, will you allow him to be the summoner of the toads again, Gamabunta? The huge toad just looked at Naruto seriously and said, I have nothing against. He is the one the old man told us about, and besides, he is Minato's tadpole. If I didn't accept it, I would feel bad with his brat father and with the old man. Well, Gaki, from now on you are the new summoner of the toads. Be sure to call us when you need us. If that's all, I'll leave to tell everyone on the mountain that we've found the prophecy brat. Clear. Tell Ma and Pa that I will visit them when she can, Naruto said with a smile. Thank you for everything, Gamabunta, Jiraiya said with a small smile. Thus, Gamabunta disappeared in smoke, and when they were alone, Jiraiya looked at Naruto to say, Well, that was something I didn't expect. I guess you have high expectations from the Toad Clan now. For this reason, we will work on your training with great enthusiasm. Tell me, do you have any ideas to improve? Naruto thought about it a little and said, Currently, yes. In my fight against Yujito, she managed to use a Matatabi version of the Rasengan. Seeing that, I thought maybe she could create more versions of the technique. Jiraiya looked at him in amazement and said, I think it's something great, but how do you plan to achieve it? Naruto just showed a white paper and channeled chakra into it to show how it was divided into 6 parts, and the 6 reacted to the 7 important elements: water, fire, lightning, earth, wind, light and darkness. I think I could create an elemental version of the Rasengan since I have the 7 main elements, Naruto said seriously. Jiraiya widened his eyes at his words and said, But you didn't achieve it with the Rasen Shuriken? Naruto shook his head and said, That's just implanting the elemental chakra into the Rasengan, giving it a special ability. Let me explain. By implanting elemental chakra, we are giving a cover to the Rasengan that gives it an ability. For example, the Rasen Shuriken is created by implanting wind chakra into the Rasengan and gives it the ability to permanently cut the enemy. Another example would be Boruto's invisible Rasengan by implanting lightning chakra, giving him the ability to become invisible. Do you understand me so far? I can understand it. So what exactly are you planning? Jiraiya said curiously. Naruto created a simple Rasengan in his hand and then said, It is very simple. What we will try to achieve is to create a Rasengan of different elements. That is, a Rasengan of fire, one of lightning, one of wind, one of water, one of earth, one of light and one of darkness. So that you can understand it, it is creating the same thing, but composed of one element. Jiraiya looked at him with wide eyes and said, But that is very complicated. You would have to have the ability to use the elements at will like the Nidaime did, and he could only achieve it with water. Do you think you can achieve it in a month? Naruto just gave him his classic sly smile and said, Are you forgetting that I was able to create the Rasengan in less than it took my father? I'm sure I'll make it. Also, I have the shadow clone method and it will reduce my time. Now do you think I can do it? Jiraiya looked at him in amazement, finding his former students in their place, and then laughed as he said, Ha ha ha, you are really amazing. I guess that's why Nagato left you hope for him, and you were able to eliminate the hatred in your past life. Well, let's get to work to prepare you for the final. Naruto smiled with joy as he returned to training with his sensei, and thus, they both began training for the finals of the tournament. Chapter 33, The Tournament Begins. The day of the tournament had already arrived and many people were entering the Colosseum where the test tournament would be held to watch the fights. Among them, the 4 Kages of the elemental countries had arrived with the Hokage and were greeting him with joy. Yondaime. It's good to see you with energy, said A with a big handshake. Hee, it's good to have you here, Raikage. I'm sure he's come to see great fights in the tournament, right? Minato said with a nervous laugh. Ha, of course yes. Also, I hope that the Gaki will show us his power in this tournament, A said with joy. Then, Mei went to Kushina and said, It's a pleasure to see you, Kushina-sama. I'm looking forward to seeing Naruto-kun fight in this tournament. Thank you, Mei-chan. I assure you that he will show his great potential in this tournament, Kushina said with a smile. Then, Onoki approached Minato and said, Yandame Donado, we are eager to see how the participants in this tournament will fight. It's good to escape from Kage's work to enjoy such an event. Minato smiled and said, It's right. A good event, how this is very relaxing for our work. Then, everyone saw how the Kazekage approached them and narrowed their eyes when they knew who he really was. Yandame Dano, it's good to see that he is alive and that he has returned to his position as Hokage, Orochimaru said in his costume. Kushina had to force herself not to throw herself at him, and Minato only gave Orochimaru a fake smile as he said, It's also good to have you with us, Kazekage Dano. Join us to see our shinobi demonstrate their talent in this tournament. Orochimaru just smiled with his eyes and followed the Kages towards the Kages box where they were waiting for them, Hiruzen with Jiraiya, Mikoto and Mito accompanying him. Hiruzen Dano, he honors us with his presence, Onoki said happily. Well, I am a Kage, although retired, so I am allowed to accompany you at this event, Hiruzen said with a smile. Then, he saw Orochimaru disguised as the Kazekage and just sighed while Mei went to Mito and said, It is an honor to be before you, Mito-sama. Our village tells great stories about you and your clan, so we still admire your talents. Mito smiled at his words and said, Thank you for your words. In some way, Yuza had some kind of connection with Kiri as they were villages that shared the same styles. It's good to have a Mizukage like you among us. Just like that, the Kages sat in their seats and Kushina went to sit next to Mito with Mikoto and her daughters. Down on the battlefield, the participants were waiting for their Hokage's words, but 3 people were missing. Where are they, Naruto, Sasuke and Akino? Sakura asked herself, somewhat annoyed. I asked myself the same thing, Ino said worriedly. Those 2 must surely be planning a dramatic entrance. Shikamaru thought lazily. Where is that Uchiha? I just hope he doesn't make us look bad or I'll have to give him what he deserves. Hinata thought with annoyance. Then, the referee looked at them seriously and said, Stay still, look straight at the spectators. You are the protagonists of this test. Everyone looked at him with frowns and Sakura asked him, Sir, where is Hate-san? The referee could only put on a sad look and said, He was attacked at night and did not survive. Gaara opened his eyes at this and looked at the Kage's box to see Orochimaru in disguise. He had something to do with it, he was sure. Orochimaru only smiled under his guise of him as that snooper received what he deserved from him. After all, he had crashed his conversation with Kabuto that night and unfortunately got what he deserved. Sakura felt bad at this since it meant that Yugao-san was alone again. Although, in this new timeline she had never seen them together, so it was possible that they were not dating. She would ask him later. Minato observed the absence of his children and asked one of his guards, Are Naruto and Sasuke still not showing up? That's how it is. According to Kakashi, Sasuke-san will surely appear for the test, and he should not worry. The guard responded. Minato sighed at his student's lateness and Jiraiya told him, Don't worry about Naruto. He will appear and give them a good show. I think so, surely my Sochi will make a fantastic entrance that will leave everyone with their mouths open, Kushina said excitedly. Minato could only pat his head at the same kind of ideas that mother and son had. Then he got up from his seat and said, Well, we'll let them appear whenever they want. It's time to start. Minato stood before everyone present in the Kage's box and amplified his voice to begin the presentation of the tournament. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chunin promotion exam. It's a pleasure to have you here. These are the 14 candidates who passed the preliminaries. Now they will face each other in combat in the final test. Enjoy the show until the end, he said with a smile. 14 candidates? Aren't you missing 3? Asked the Kazekage with a penetrating look. Minato looked at him with cold eyes and said, They will appear over time. For now, enjoy the fights that will take place before yours. With the participants, Shikamaru asked the referee, Hey, what will happen to Sasuke, Naruto and Akino? If they are not here when their turn comes, they will be eliminated. Most of them looked at each other with a drop of sweat, and Shikamaru thought, I wouldn't be surprised if Sasuke is late once like the other time and if Naruto to make a striking entrance, as is his specialty. But Akino is the one that intrigues me. She's not thinking the same as Naruto, right? Then, the referee looked at the participants and said, I want it to be clear to you that this is the last test of the exam. We are in a different place, but the rules are the same as in the preliminaries. Whoever dies or whoever accepts defeat will lose. But as a referee, I can decide when someone has won or not, and in that case, I will stop the match, okay? Everyone agreed and the referee looked at the fight table to say, the first fight will be Niji Hyuga from the Leaf Village against Kuratsuchi from the Rock Village. You two stay here. The rest of the stands. The other participants headed to the stands to leave Niji and Kuratsuchi in the center of the battlefield. In the Kage's box, they said to Onoki, it seems that your granddaughter will face the prodigy Hyuga. Do you think she can beat him? Onoki just looked at him with a smile and said, my granddaughter was not Tsuchikage for anything. I assure you that she will be able to deal with that Hyuga brat like the leader she was. Meanwhile, in the spectator boxes, Hayashi was next to his daughter Ella Hanabi, who had her memories of her past life Ella, and she had accepted her marriage Ella to Naruto too well since he was someone she got fantastic along with. On this occasion, we must see how your cousin will fight with the Tsuchikage's granddaughter. Look at their combat very carefully, daughter, Hayashi said with a smile. Of course, Father, Hanabi said with emotion. Meanwhile, Hinata was looking at her cousin with analytical eyes and Sakura asked her, do you think Kuratsuchi can win? Hinata just sighed and said, Niji-ni-san is at a disadvantage this time since Kuro-san has his experience of him from his past life of him. If she were the kunoichi that she was in this life even, then she could say that my cousin has won the battle. But he will have a tough fight since he is facing a very strong Tsuchikage. On the battlefield, Niji was looking at Kuratsuchi with analytical eyes and was trying to create some foolproof strategy against the IWA kunoichi. Then, Kuratsuchi just grew in annoyance and said, are you going to be there forever? Stop analyzing me and make your first move. Niji could only sigh at his very Naruto-like behavior and said, now I see that in that future people with the same spirit as Naruto-san have managed to become Kages. I think I have no choice but to fight with my instincts. With that said, he launched himself against her to start a fight with his clan's Taijutsu de Ella, and the black-haired woman only smiled at his movement de Ella. Heh, I imagined you would do something like that, she said with a mocking smile. Then, he covered his fist with a rocky substance and parried the Hyuga's blow with ease. Niji saw this with wide eyes and Kuratsuchi told him, you should know that I am prepared for any of your techniques, young man. I wasn't the Tsuchikage after my grandfather for nothing. Saying this, he hit Niji in the chest with his rock fist and sent him flying towards the wall with great force. Niji's body hit the wall creating a huge crater, and this was seen by everyone with wide eyes. Is Niji losing in taijutsu? How is it possible? Tenten shouted without believing it. Father, is there any explanation for Niji-ni-san being in this situation? Hanabi asked her father about her. Hayashi could only observe the situation seriously and said, I guess mastery over the Doton element is giving the Tsuchikage's granddaughter an advantage. I think she will give us more surprises as the fight progresses. Look carefully, Hanabi. Minato observed what happened and asked Onoki. Tsuchikage Dano, your granddaughter has prepared her own cards for this fight, hasn't she? I assume you've given him some tips for dealing with her opponents, right? Onoki just smiled proudly and said, oh no. She has trained alone, and has informed herself of every opponent she will face. Keep watching the battle, it may give you a big surprise. On the battlefield, Niji stood out from the crater in the wall and looked at Kuratsuchi with an analytical eye. It seems I have to be careful with your Doton. I may regret it if I don't. Here we go, he said before launching himself at the girl again. He prepared his gentle fist to hit her in her vital points, and began a flurry of quick blows that managed to hit each of her points. By the time he finished hitting her, he moved away from her to see if he had worked, and was perplexed to see that she was looking at him with a huge smile. That was it? I see that your soft fist is powerful, but I also have my trick, she said while she unbuttoned her shirt. Everyone's eyes were wide as they saw how she was slowly undressing, but they opened their eyes even more when they saw that she was only showing part of her body that was covered in a brown cloak. That's it, Niji said without believing it. Kuratsuchi smiled slyly and said, Oh yes, it is a layer of rock that protects me from any physical attack. I was able to complete it currently and implement it to be able to protect myself from your gentle fist. Now it is proven that it can protect my vital points from Hyuga techniques and I am saved. Practically everyone was speechless at this revelation and Orochimaru said, It seems that the girl has talent. She has managed to see through the Hyuga techniques and create a countermeasure against them. He must be proud of her granddaughter, Sasuke. Oanoki just puffed his chest at his granddaughter's achievement and said, She is the hardest rock in my entire village, i.e. my back. In the stands, Hayashi was speechless at such a maneuver and Hanabi asked him, Is that possible, father? Hayashi analyzed it a little before answering. It looks like it is. If someone possesses Doton mastery as advanced as hers, then it is possible to create such a powerful shield against our techniques. Right now, Niji is in a complicated situation where all of her weapons are useless. Let's see how she deals with this. On the battlefield, Niji was analyzing the situation in frustration as he saw that he was against the wall. With that shield on his body, his vital points were protected and he was also unable to cause harm to his body. He was thinking about how to fight her, when Kuratsuchi decided to take action on her. Doton, Doskiri Earth Element, Earth and Rock Dragon, she shouted after making hand seals. From the earth, a dragon of earth and rock formed and charged at Niji and sent several rocks in his direction. The Hyuga had no choice but to use the Kaiten to protect himself from such an attack. He spun in place to send the stone projectiles flying, but Kuratsuchi smiled slyly. You fell into my trap, Yotan, freeze and Cal, she shouted, preparing her mouth. It spat a gray substance that went towards Niji's rotating dome, and covered it completely until a dome of cement was formed that completely hardened in a short time. Everyone watched this in amazement, and Kuratsuchi finished his work with a smile to say, I had knowledge of the Kaiten of the Hyuga and was able to create a strategy against her. Thanks to my lava element, I was able to make your Kaiten play against you by covering him with my cement. That dome is good for repelling any attack, but it also creates a circumference that someone with intelligence and the proper techniques can use to capture you in it. I'm sorry, but I'm dealing with someone who clearly has the right elements to deal with you. Niji was inside the dome while trying to destroy that mass of cement with his gentle fist, but to no avail. Do not try. That layer of cement is too hard for you to destroy it. Now let's see if we can end this once and for all, Kuratsuchi said, preparing his fist with stone. He launched himself towards the dome and hit it with great force to destroy it, and then continue his path until he reached Niji's body, impacting his fist against her poor Hyuga's chest. She slammed him into the ground with great force, creating a crater in the ground, and when she walked away, she could see that Niji was still conscious on the ground. Wow, you are a tough nut to crack. I guess I'll have to be more serious to beat you, Kuratsuchi said with a smile. He was going to hit him again, but Niji quickly raised his hand and shouted, Referee, I'm leaving. Kuratsuchi and everyone in the stadium were shocked when they heard these words, and the referee asked him, You're sure? Yeah. Even I know when I am at a disadvantage and when I have no chance to win. I know when I must retire with dignity from a fight that I cannot win, Niji said, slowly getting up. The referee agreed to his words and shouted, The gunman is Kuratsuchi from IWA. At this, everyone applauded the black-haired girl's victory, and Oanoki was so happy that he jumped in his seat while shouting, Yeah, my beautiful granddaughter has done it, i.e., my back, it doesn't matter. Nothing will stop me from celebrating for my beloved granddaughter, i.e., my back. Everyone looked at him with a friendly smile, and Kushina said, She is a good girlfriend for my Sochi. She is strong and intelligent. Minato nodded and said, It is evident that our son manages to captivate highly talented girls. He looks like me in that. Because I taught them both, Jiraiya said proudly. Meanwhile, Hayashi was watching his nephew with a smile, while Hanabi said with annoyance, I gave up. Couldn't he fight her a little more? He was smart to give up. He knew that she was capable of countering her every move and retreated with dignity. Don't blame him for acting intelligently, since it is wise to admit when you can't do something. Hayashi told him with a smile. Hanabi just sighed and said, I guess you're right. Then Niji and Kuratsuchi went to the stands to rest, and the referee shouted, Well, the next one will be between Akino Uchiha and Tenten of the Leaf. Let the combatants appear on the field now. Chapter 34, and Uchiha with great courage. Everyone was waiting for Akino's appearance, since Tenten was on the battlefield with an annoyed expression, and the Uchiha had not yet arrived. Where is Akino-chan? He's supposed to be here for his fight, Minato said somewhat angrily. In the Kage's box, Kushina looked at Mito with a frown and asked, Do you know anything about his lateness, Mito-sama? After all, you trained her. Myth just smiled slyly and said, That girl is an unusual Uchiha. She possesses the energy of the Uzumakis and a bit of the pride of the Uchiha. Just be patient, as she will give you good entertainment. This surprised the Kages, and the goddesses were discreetly laughing as they watched the events with the leaders. Then the referee shouted, If Akino Uchiha does not appear, she will be disqualified. This did not please everyone in the stadium, and they shouted against it, while Tenten ground her teeth at her Uchiha's audacity. That stupid one, she says that she plans to surpass Tsunade-sama, and has the audacity to miss our fight, she said with fury. But at that moment, Sakura looked at the sky and pointed at it while shouting, Look! Everyone turned their gaze to the sky to see how a spectral red female figure slowly descended into the stadium on her scarlet wings and landed in the center of the field and then vanished, revealing a smiling Akino Uchiha in a different outfit. She wore a very tight red dress that highlighted her developed body, and in her eyes you could see the sun-shaped eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in all its splendor. Akino Uchiha has arrived into the battle with a wonderful dramatic entry, the Uchiha shouted, sticking out her chest with great pride. Everyone was with their mouths open at such an entrance from the Uchiha, and Tenten only grunted as she said, Presumptive. In the Kage's box, Mikoto looked at her niece with a proud smile, and Kushina asked, somewhat confused, I thought she didn't want to use her Sharingan to prove she was strong. What happened? Mito smiled slyly and said, Oh, she wouldn't use it for that. But as an Uzumaki who has drama in her blood, I advise her to at least use it to give a memorable presentation. That girl is not an Uzumaki by blood, but she is one by heart. Kushina and Mikoto smiled at this, and turned their gaze to the battle to see how Akino would do. Meanwhile, Orochimaru was having some sort of orgasm at the sight of the Uchiha Susanoo and was smiling maliciously behind his mask as he imagined himself with such power. Minato looked at him coldly and said, Did it seem like a good demonstration of our Uchiha, Kazekage-sama? Orochimaru recovered from his excitement and looked at Minato with an eye smile as he said, Oh yeah? It's a great demonstration. It seems that the Uchiha clan has great talents as the last survivors. This caused everyone in the box to look at him with narrowed eyes, but they let him pass since it was necessary for him to remain unsuspecting. On the battlefield, Akino looked at Tenten with a sly smile and said, I hope you're ready to lose. You are just another stone in my dream, and I am going to destroy you to achieve it. Tenten smiled mockingly and said, It will remain in your dreams. I will protect the title of Tsunade-sama and defeat you so that she maintains her honor. Hell, we'll see. I'll kick your ass first, and then I'll go after that old lady soon. Let's end this once and for all, Akino shouted, getting into a battle position. The referee nodded with a smile and said in front of everyone, The fight between Akino Uchiha and Tenten of the Leaf will begin. Are both containers ready? I'm ready, Tenten said with a cold look. Start the fight now, Akino shouted furiously. The referee's sweat dropped at the Uchiha's scream, but he raised his hand and shouted, In that case, start. And with that, he disappeared, leaving the two kunoichis alone. Left alone, Tenten took a storage scroll and unrolled it while he said, I know I can't go easy on you if I want to win, that's why I'll go with something strong from the beginning. I activated the signal on the scroll and took out a feather fan that caused confusion in the Uchiha. What's that? Are you going to fight with a feather bag with me? Who do you think you are? Akino shouted with fury. In the Kage's box, A looked at the fan with wide eyes and said, The brother's fan? How does that girl own it? Minato smiled and said, I don't think it's the same. I guess because she used it in that war, she was thinking of a way to obtain something similar. I guess she was researching how to recreate it in a safer way. Let's see how it works. Tenten waved the fan at Akino with a smile as she shouted, Bashozen, Hai no Maki Fire Scroll. From the fan, a large gale of intense flames headed towards the Uchiha, who quickly moved to avoid it and observed how the area had been singed by such an attack. That was dangerous. Do you want to kill me? Akino shouted with her eyes wide open. Tenten just gave him a sweet smile and said, I told you that I would protect Tsunade-sama's honor, and I am willing to do anything to achieve it. Akino sweated a lot at those words and then she made hand signals to shout. Raiton, Raikou Lightning Sphere. Several spheres of electricity appeared around her and headed towards Tenten like bullets. The brown-haired girl only smiled at the Uchiha's jutsu and moved her fan while she shouted, Bashozen, Kaze no Maki Gust of Wind. Powerful waves of wind were launched by the brown-haired girl's fan and went towards the black-haired girl's lightning balls, impacting them. The powerful wind eliminated the spheres and continued its path towards the Uchiha, who gritted her teeth as she said, Curse, I didn't want to use this on you, but I have no choice. He took out a paper from his pocket and placed it before the wind waves with a cold expression. Some saw this with wide eyes and Kushina said, Does she? Mito just smiled with pride worthy of a sensei and said, I like the girl and I couldn't help but make her my disciple of her. Obviously I taught him the art of our clan. She will be the Uchiha who will carry on her shoulders the union of both clans to a beautiful future. The wind waves headed towards Akino, and when they collided with her Uchiha's palm, everyone watched as they were absorbed by the paper in her hands. Tenten watched this with wide eyes and watched as Akino smiled slyly at him as he said, Thanks for the wind element, stupid. Then, he made several hand signs and took a breath while shouting, Katan, Jutsu of the Gokakyu Fireball Jutsu. From her mouth, a huge fireball shot towards Tenten, who was ready to deal with it, but he saw how the black-haired woman put the paper in front of her and shouted, Elemental Containment Seal, release. From the paper, the same wind wave jutsu shot towards the fireball quickly, and upon contact, the fireball transformed into a huge sphere of blue flames that headed mercilessly towards the brown-haired girl. What the hell? Tenten shouted, not believing what she saw. The huge fireball hit her mercilessly, causing a huge explosion that shook the entire stadium. When everything calmed down, many in the place were praising Akino for such a spectacle. That's it, Akino, show them how strong you are, Sakura shouted with excitement. When did he become so strong? Ino said with a smile. Problematic. I'm just thankful I'm not fighting her, Chikamura said lazily. In the Kage's box, Orochimaru watched this with a penetrating gaze, and in his mind, he was angry. Because? Why doesn't he use the Sharingan or the curse signal? Are you not planning to use either of them in your combat? He thought furiously. Makoto looked at Mito in amazement and asked, Are the Uzumaki seals capable of this? Mito just stuck out his chest proudly and said, Of that and more, our seals are capable of things that normal jutsus would dream of achieving. In fact, jutsus require a signal on the hands to function, which is why our art is superior. That was just a small demonstration of what they can achieve. Akino raised her hand in a sign of peace and shouted with joy. Oh yeah, Uzumaki stamps are the best, take that, you stupid weapon. All the spectators began to shout with excitement at such a display of the Uchiha's talent, and were eager for more. Akino, 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 everyone shouted with excitement. Akino looked at his opponent as he slowly and painfully rose from the ground, while he looked at the Uchiha with murderous eyes. It seems that your determination to stop me is very weak. Is this all you can do to defend the honor of your idol? Akino said with a sly smile. Tenten ground his teeth at her words and grabbed the fan tightly as he shouted, Don't you dare insult her, I won't let you get to her even if it's the last thing I do. Instantly, she took out 2 scrolls from her kunai holder and threw them into the air while he held the fan furiously. I will teach you my best technique and the one that will defeat you once and for all. Ascending twin dragons of the 5 elements, she shouted, making a seal with one hand. From the 2 seals, multiple kunai and shurikens came out and headed towards the Uchiha at high speed. However, Tenten was not done as she swung her fan at all the weapons and they were covered in the 5 elements, giving them more danger. Let's see if you can fight this, Tenten shouted with fury. Akino just looked at the weapons heading towards her with cold eyes and said, You were wrong about one thing. I didn't insult her, I respect her enough to want to surpass her, that's why. I'm going to end this once and for all. She charged at the weapons without fear and prepared her fist covering him in chakra. She extended it against the weapons and sent a powerful shock wave blasting them all away from her path. Tenten saw this with wide eyes and Akino yelled at her. If you really respect her, let her be the one to defend herself, take this, stupid. With that, he hit her in the stomach with enormous force that sent her flying towards the ground, creating a huge crater in the floor. The referee went to check her condition and shouted, Participant Tenten can no longer continue. Victory goes to Akino Uchiha. Everyone began to applaud for the Uchiha's victory, while the black-haired man was breathing heavily for her victory. She did it, Akino won, Sakura shouted with joy. Hinata looked at the black-haired girl celebrating her victory, and could only smile as she said, Enjoy your victory, Uchiha, because if we fight in this tournament, your celebration will end. In the Kage's box, Mito was celebrating the victory of his disciple. Yes, she did it, I knew she wouldn't let me down, she shouted with joy. Everyone saw her with wide eyes, seeing her in a stage that was not that of the refined and strict woman that she always presented, but Minato smiled and said, There is no doubt that she is a kunoichi who possesses the will of fire throughout her being. She managed to beat Tenten-chan without the need for the Sharingan. Orochimaru was seeing things with anger at what he had just seen and was wondering how to deal with the fact that the Uchiha girl didn't use her clan's power to win. That was why he didn't like girls, since they were very conceited and always wanted to do everything the way they wanted. If you don't believe her, look at Tsunade, a stuck-up and arrogant little princess who always did things her way. After Tenten was taken to the infirmary, the referee shouted, Now we will begin the next fight of the tournament, Sabaku no Gaara of the Sand against Shino Aburame of the Leaf. Both contestants, go down to the arena. However, Shino said in a strong voice, I withdraw. This surprised everyone and the referee asked, I know it's not necessary, but could you tell us why you're leaving? It's very simple. Gaara-san possesses strength and talent beyond what my insects can handle. They are not trained to fight an opponent like him, and I will not enter a fight in which they cannot support me. For that reason Shino explained with great seriousness. Oh, Itan Shino, what do you think you are doing? Kiba yelled angrily. Shino only remained silent for a while as his teammate continued his interruptions and only said in a monotone voice, I will only retire in peace so that my insects are not harmed in a battle they cannot win. That's all. People could understand his point since he did it for his insects, as did Gaara, and the referee sighed as he said, I guess nothing can be done. The winner of the 3rd match is Sabaku no Gaara. Now, we will move on to the 4th match of the tournament, Sasuke Uchiha of the Leaf versus Sabaku no Kankuro of the arena. Let the contenders go down to the... I'm leaving too, Kankuro said calmly. The referee looked at him with a cold look and shouted, And now why you too? Almost the same reason as the Aburame. I am not in condition to fight the Uchiha and my puppets are not ready. I'm leaving without any problems so you can continue with the tournament, Kankuro said in a lazy voice. The referee had his mouth open at such an event and Minato said, Well, that will give Sasuke a chance to fight in his next match. He and Gaara-san will fight in the next stage, so that will relieve people. And indeed, people were not angry about the withdrawals since it meant that Gaara and Sasuke would face each other in the next round. Orochimaru smiled evilly beneath his mask as he saw that at least something was going right. The referee observed the Kage's box to know Minato's opinion, and when he saw that he agreed, he sighed to shout, Well, in that case Sasuke Uchiha moves on to the next round to face Gaara of the Sand. Now we go to the next fight, Hinata Hyuga of the Leaf against Sabaku no Temari of the Sand. Chapter 35, A New Hyuga. Everyone was waiting for the kunoichis to fight, and Akino looked at Hinata to say, "You better not lose to her, Hyuga, only I can defeat you." Hinata smiled proudly at him and said, "The feeling is mutual, Uchiha." "Good luck, Hinata," Sakura said with a smile. "Show him the power of Naruto's legal wife," Ino said with emotion. Hinata gave them a kind smile at those words and disappeared in purple flames to reappear through a blue lion-shaped flame as a striking entrance. "TCH, smug Hyuga," Akino said with annoyance. Hinata looked at Temari, who was talking to her brothers before heading down to battle. "Be careful with her. In this new life, she has changed, and it is possible that she is a kunoichi that is difficult to beat," Kankuro told her sister, worried about her. "Temari, fight with pride and honor. Remember that they will be companions in Naruto Uzumaki's family, and that as such, both of them must fight seriously as a sign of respect," Gaara said seriously. "Don't worry. I will fight her with everything I have of her. Although she will surely be saving some things for her fight against the Uchiha." "Well, here I go," Temari said with a smile. Then, he opened his fan and manipulated the wind to fly above him towards the combat arena. When he reached the ground, he approached Hinata with a smile and said, "I'm looking forward to fighting you. After all, I must prove my worth as Naruto's future wife to his legal wife." Hinata smiled friendly and said, "That's good. We will both fight as kunoichis, and in this battle, we must show everyone that the future wives of their future Hokage are strong." Genma looked at them with a smile and shouted to the audience, "The battle between Hinata Hyuga of the Leaf and Sabaku no Temari of the Sand is about to begin. Are both opponents ready?" "Yo soy," Temari said. "Me too," Hinata said. "Good, in that case, start," Genma shouted before disappearing. When he was gone, Temari quickly walked away and opened her fan to swing it at Hinata while shouting, "No problem." A powerful gale made her way towards the purple-haired girl, who only remained in place with a serious expression. Then, Hinata prepared his palm, adding chakra to it, and punched the air as he shouted, "Hack Kusha, palm of heavenly air." A large wave of air was expelled from the palm of the hand towards Temari's gale, and when they met, they caused a crash that shook everyone. When everything calmed down, Temari looked at Hinata with an amused smile as she said, "Do you use the hack kusha to block my wind techniques? I must admit that I am impressed that you accomplished such a thing. It looks like I'm going to have fun." Hinata smiled back and then closed her eyes as she said in a slow voice, "Tensigen." He opened his eyes to show the legendary eyes of his ancestor, and Temari began to worry. Then, Hinata ran towards the kunoichi arena to start a taijutsu battle, and Temari prepared his fan for another attack. "Kamaitachi no jutsu!" she shouted, swinging her fan. Another gale went towards the Hyuga with force, but the purple-haired girl only extended her hand towards the gale and shouted, "Shinra Tensei." Instantly, the gale returned towards the blonde, who tried to block it with her fan, but it seemed that with her repulsion skill, the wind had gained more power. "Can she now use that repulsion skill? I am in trouble," she thought sweatily. However, she was surprised to see how the Hyuga appeared before her and covered her fists in purple chakra that took the shape of lions. "Juho Sasuke twin lion fist," shouts Hinata, ready to attack. Temari tried to move away, but the Hyuga moved at high speed and began a sequence of blows on the blonde's body that caused great pain in her body. Each blow was so powerful that it seemed like she was hit with pure metal, and in the end, Temari was thrown towards the wall to be embedded in it in great pain. Everyone watched this in amazement, and in the stands, Hayashi watched the fight with a smile, while Hanabi was screaming with joy at her sister's power. In the Kage's box, the Reikage laughed as he said, "Ha ha 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 ha, that young woman is really strong. No wonder the brat fell in love with her. She is a young woman with great talent. I congratulate you on getting such a talented daughter-in-law, Hokage Dano," Onoki said with a smile. "Fufufu, she is a young girl of great beauty and danger. It seems that she will join the club of dangerous women of the shinobi world," they said with an amused smile. I guess my son and I share a taste for dangerous women, Minato said, looking at his wife Kushina, who was excitedly cheering Hinata on. Orochimaru was watching Hinata with a look that would scare children and was licking his lips maliciously as he imagined himself with such jujutsu. Meanwhile, Hinata was approaching Temari to continue the fight, and upon arriving, she saw how the blonde was out of combat. She sweat dropped as she didn't think she had become strong enough to defeat a kunoichi of Temari's level so easily, and she looked at herself, surprised at how much she had improved. Genma looked at Temari's state of her and shouted, "Sabaku no Temari can no longer continue. The victory goes to Hinata Hyuga of the Leaf." Everyone applauded Hinata's victory, which left her somewhat surprised by such recognition since she had not received so much in her life. The one who applauded him the most was Hanabi, who was so happy that she even shouted, "Yeah, that's my Oni-sama." Hayashi applauded with a smile full of pride as Niji did, and they knew that this was just the beginning of a new stage for the clan. With Hinata's classmates, those who were celebrating the most were Sakura and Ino, who were elated by the victory of their friend and matriarch. "He did it, our older sister did it," Sakura shouted with joy. "Way to go, Oni-sama, you have shown them your power," as the main wife Ino shouted with great emotion. "Well done, Hyuga, no one can beat you but me," Akino shouted with a sly smile. Hinata just bowed before the entire audience and headed towards the participants' box to let the battles continue. She met with her classmates to receive congratulations from them, and then, Genma shouted, "Now we will continue with the next match of the tournament. Sakura Haruno vs. Ino Yamanaka of the Leaf. Let the opponents go down to the arena." At this point, the goddesses Kami and Yami began to shout in support of their respective champions. "Come on, Sakura, demonstrate the superior power of light," Kami shouted with excitement. "You're dreaming, little light Ino, use the power of darkness and win," Yami shouted with joy. "What did you say, little shadow?" "What you heard, Lasesida." Both clashed their foreheads while being seen by the majority with a drop of sweat. Sakura and Ino went down to the arena together and positioned themselves in front of each other before Genma. "We will begin the fight between Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka. Are both combatants ready?" Genma said, looking at both. "We are," they both said with a nod. Genma nodded and shouted, "In that case, start." And with that, he disappeared to let them fight. Left alone, they both jumped away from each other and quickly performed hand signals. "Yin element, Kurai Kyutai dark sphere," Ino shouted. "Yang element, Kasen light ray," Sakura shouted. The blonde created a sphere of dark energy that was directed towards her opponent Deella, and the pink-haired woman sent a beam of light from her hands to Deella that went towards the sphere. Both attacks collided with each other and caused an explosion that shook the entire stadium. When everything calmed down, they saw how there was a crater in the center of the stadium with the two opponents staring at each other. "What was that?" they asked without believing it. "I've never seen anything like that," Onoki said with his eyes wide open. "Not even a minute has passed and they have already created havoc in the stadium," Mei said, amused. But they heard giggles near them and they all saw the goddesses Kami and Yami laughing in amusement. "What's so funny?" Minato asked, confused. Kami looked at him with an amused smile and said, "Oh dear Hokage, that was only the beginning." This opened everyone's eyes even more and they turned their gaze towards the combat to see what else they would show. Then, Sakura launched herself at Ino while she covered her fist of light and shouted, "Shinero." Ino saw this with a serious expression and to everyone's surprise, she dove into the shadows to escape the blow. Sakura's blow hit the ground and caused an explosion of light that destroyed the area with great power and made the entire stadium shake. When everything calmed down, everyone was speechless when they saw that there was a huge crater in the ground that went very deep. "What strength!" they shouted, impressed. "It seems that the young girl has surpassed Tsunade in strength and power," they said with a smile. Kami was excited by the power of her champion Ella, and Yami just remained calm as she looked at an area of the arena calmly. "But where is the young Yamanaka?" Onoki asked curiously. In the combat arena, Sakura was looking all over the place for Ino, wondering where she was, when her hands grabbed her legs from underneath her. The pink-haired girl looked at her feet to see a huge shadow beneath her, and her hands coming out of the shadow. I got you, front, Ino's voice said from the shadows. Then, the blonde came out of the shadow quickly while taking the pink-haired girl with her and then threw her towards the wall with force, embedding her in it. Did he hide in the shadows? Myth asked in amazement. Shadows are part of the Yin element, since they are part of darkness. Therefore, someone who can master the Yin element masterfully can move through shadows as if it were a means of transportation. Yami explained with an amused smile. Everyone was speechless at such a revelation and turned their attention back to the combat. Ino was breathing heavily since shadow travel was difficult, but she heard Sakura say calmly, very badly, and I was planning to save this for when I possibly fought in the final. I guess I have no choice but to use it. Ino looked at her with her eyes open and saw in disbelief how the pink-haired girl's body was covered in black lines that started on her forehead. The Byakugo no In. I should have known it wouldn't be so easy, Ino said with a sigh. Sakura smiled slyly and put her hands together as she said, That's how it is. But the seal on my forehead is the least you have to worry about. Ino and the rest of the spectators watched in surprise as the pink-haired girl's body was covered in a layer of pure light as if it were armor. Is that, said Seto with great surprise. Did you teach him that, Kami? Yami shouted, looking at his partner with a serious look. Kami just remained calm as a huge smile appeared on her face and said with a voice so full of victory, Indeed, I taught her, and don't criticize me because you taught your champion the journey between the shadows. What is that, Kami-sama? Kushina asked curiously. Kami looked at the Reikage and explained with an arrogant smile. Take the Reikage's lightning armor as an example. This is the armor of light that I have taught my champion, and it is what will lead her to victory. And is it similar to my lightning armor? A asked, interested. Kami increased her smile and said, His armor specializes in speed and power. That of my champion. At that moment, Sakura disappeared from everyone's sight, and the only thing they could see was a kind of bright blur that moved throughout the stadium. Specializes in speed. After all, light has the highest speed in existence, doesn't it, little shadow? Kami continued, looking at Yami with a mischievous look. Yami could only grunt at her words from Ella, since Little Light always boasted about her supreme speed from Ella, and that bothered her. In the arena, Ino was trying to see where her rival was, when she felt a powerful blow that sent her flying away from her. However, she didn't have time to do anything as she received another blow in the air and then another, to continue receiving a sequence of blows that made her bounce in the air. Incredible. It seems like if he were teleporting, Minato said in amazement. And also, it is seen that his blows are powerful. Didn't he say that the armor specializes in speed? Owanoki asked curiously. Indeed, the armor specializes in speed. However, she already has monstrous strength and power thanks to her teacher, and that, combined with my light armor, makes her an unparalleled fighter, Kami said, proud of her student. Sakura's blows against Ino continued until the blonde was thrown into a wall, leaving her pinned to it. Sakura landed on the ground with some dizziness since she was still getting used to the extreme speed of the armor, and she saw how Genma was checking on her friend and then shouted, Ino Yamanaka can't continue anymore. Victory goes to Sakura Haruno of the Leaf. Everyone applauded the victory of the pink-haired girl, who smiled at the recognition and headed towards the stands to rest. In the Kage's box, Kami was celebrating as he shouted, Yes, she won the bet, Sambrita. Yami just grew up at his words and Kushina asked, And what did they bet? If one of our champions beat the other, that champion's goddess would be the first to have her night with Naruto-kun, Kami said with great joy. Everyone opened their eyes at such a statement, and Jiraiya could only say with tears, I am so proud of you, my disciple. Kushina could only sigh at this dilemma and said, I don't know how to feel that my little one has such a relationship with goddesses. I guess I shouldn't complain. Then, Genma looked at the audience and shouted, The last fight of this round will begin, Naruto Uzumaki vs Shikamaru Nara. Everyone was eager for this. The battle of the Yondame's sun was about to begin.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.